We're talking about one of Trump's presidential advisors. He said that he saw a satanic portal above the White House. So I look at his evidence. Roger Stone claims a satanic portal hovers over the White House, and he starts praying for it. Well, apparently, the satanic portal, which turned him into a prayer warrior. He said he was in politics his whole life, but now he knows that he's fighting a higher sort of battle here, spiritual battle. So he prays away the satanic portal above the White House. Now, what is he? A moron? Because it turns out it's a lens flare. But now he's very spiritual. So, what do we do? Criticize him for his spiritual beliefs? And it's the same thing with the Mandela effect. You're dealing with people who have experienced a fake miracle, but it has real life-changing effects. Lilith says Chris Rock, who performed earlier, came on stage and joked. Was that Will Smith? Hmm. Okay. Even more fakery. More hints of fakery. John Snyder says, I agree. I came for Tim's suggestions. I stay for his presentation and his take on our effed up reality. Yeah, even if you don't agree with our take on it, you will get a lot of important, or rather relevant information. Jared Ward says, morons, that's how I would describe it. Well, look, it's fair game because some of the main Mandela affected out there have said that we are liars if we don't believe in it. They say you're a denier, and deniers are liars. That's like saying you're a liar if you don't believe in climate change. You know how I know climate change is not real? And we can only say this now. I mean, pretty soon this will be prohibited. You know it's not real because they never took credit. The climate change enthusiasts, or alarmists rather, the global warmists, they've never taken credit for preventing it or for slowing it down. Because it's been about 33 years since they declared global warming a thing. Ocean levels have not moved up 1 inch. So how come Al Gore isn't out there taking credit for it, saying, hey, look what I did? With all these taxes and regulations, we solved the problem and the ocean levels are not rising. No, if this was real, they would have said we mitigated a disaster. But they don't. So that's how you know it's all just it's a way to, I believe, just exert more control over everything, including taxing the air that you breathe. Lean Dion says social media has made people too comfortable saying things and not getting punched in the face. Mike Tyson. Yeah, you know what? He did say that, and he gets patted on the back for it. And I was actually thinking about that very thing today. I was thinking about Mike Tyson, actually. And I was like, wait, what is he actually saying here? What is he really saying here? I mean, is he admitting that he's a snowflake and he can't control his responses to words except with violence? Like, I don't think this is acceptable. This is not very American. It's made you too comfortable disrespecting people and not getting punched in the face for it. I mean, we do have a way of dealing with defamation, I suppose. But I don't know if that's an appropriate standard to set. It's kind of snowflakey. It really is. Whether you're threatening to punch somebody in the face or you're appealing to whatever fascist platform it is to ban the person. How about we just address what they say? But anyway, what a crybaby. Yep, Dave Chappelle gets body tackled. Yeah, this is it. Lochnar says there's usually security at these events, and you'd think right now there would be a heightened state of security. And there was something we had found on the previous event with Chris Rock where someone who worked there had said something about her husband, well, a person whose husband worked there, had said something about how he was told, and everyone in security was told, that there was going to be some kind of an altercation. Let's see. Chappelle tussled with the man who ran behind the screen on stage and was surrounded by security. Chris Rock, who performed earlier, came on stage and joked, was that Will Smith? Almost seems like it was too scripted. And you know that joke's going to be pretty much used by everybody. Still haven't gotten the name of the perpetrator, but this is going to probably do well for ticket sales. Online events, it's just like watching MMA or anything else? Jay Dig says, I want to auto hoax these videos. They look staged, but I've seen these jackals in Seattle, and there is a weird brain worm that infects these mobs. So, was this in Seattle? Where was this at? We may be talking. Okay, there's here's something else I wanted to bring up because this is kind of noteworthy. There was that Met Gala. If any of you saw it, big costume party, and at this costume party, Kim Kardashian shows up in a Marilyn Monroe dress. So I've been thinking about this whole story with JFK, the Kennedys, and Marilyn Monroe, and it's all seeming like part of the whole PSYOP entertainment complex. And the QAnoners, by the way, believe that Marilyn Monroe's still alive. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is that last week there's some documentary that came out on Netflix about Marilyn Monroe. So I'm like, why are these? It's the mystery of Marilyn Monroe, the unheard tapes. This comes out, and then Kim Kardashian shows up in that dress. So I'm wondering still what's being communicated here. I'm still waiting for Kanye to go OJ on the situation, especially now that Pete Davidson branded Kim's name on his chest and tattooed the initials of her children, or his and rather Kim's and Kanye's children on his neck or something. So it's getting really kind of interesting, like he's being baited. And I believe Pete Davidson made some jokes at Kanye's expense, something they refrained from doing on SNL for some time. So I'm looking now and I'm saying, wait, she comes out wearing a dress worn by someone who died under very mysterious circumstances. Did Bobby Kennedy murder Marilyn Monroe? 60 years after her death, there isn't much new to say about it, but it says here they have some new tapes. We'll look into this, but my point on bringing this up is mainly that Kim Kardashian, says here, wore a Marilyn Monroe dress at the Met Gala. And it was a Happy Birthday, Mr. President dress. You know who was born on JFK's birthday? John Hinckley, the guy who shot Reagan. May 29th, 1955, and I believe he's out now. They let John Hinckley out, and I think they tried to get Saran out, the guy who shot Robert F. Kennedy. Like a couple of assassins on the loose. But JFK B-Day is May 29th. Yeah, so Hinckley shot Reagan and the Brady, what's his name? The guy Brady who had the Brady bill passed after. All right, I'm going through your comments. Jared Board says, I'm looking forward to the baby killer riots. Spirit Jordan says, maybe they're trying to push meta concerts to avoid violence. Oh, okay. You were talking about the cops getting mobbed. I saw that. I saw some rioting out there in Los Angeles. I saw some clips. I'll be waiting before I share too much on that. I'm still going through it all. It just looks like staged riots. I mean, we always predict this every year. It's like, oh, it's approaching May Day. They're going to find some way to agitate the commies. Oh, by the way, dark MAGA is this new trend that I've been referencing, and it ties in to everything we've been talking about with the Batman movie being released as a predictor of a wave of right-wing violence, just as the Joker movie was a predictor of the left-wing violence that we saw throughout 2020. So I'm producing a series of paintings called Dark MAGA on this kind of aesthetic of Donald Trump as this dark MAGA. And MAGA, if you didn't know, is a level 5 Satanist in the Temple of Set. Let me go ahead and verify that. So the Temple of Set has a series of degrees, and I believe it's MAGA. And the high priestess of the Church of Satan, and they just had their anniversary a couple days ago, is they call her MAGA, which is also noteworthy. Yeah, MAGA is 5th degree. It's just and I knew this before. I thought that's noteworthy here. They're putting MAGA on their hats because basically it refers to a high level witch. Lean Dion says Elon's new baby is called Dark something. They actually used letters, not just characters and symbols, something pronounceable. Another 3D printed kid. You know, the strange thing about the newest one is Grimes had a baby bump in December. So you have Grimes showing off a baby bump, but then the baby comes out and it's from a surrogate, and then Grimes runs off with Chelsea Manning. Strange family there. I was reading about Elon Musk's father who adopts some child, and then the child grows up, and then he's 42 years older. He's 72 or something, and she's 30, and they have a baby together. It's so strange. Yet Darkseid is the child's middle name. Okay. Roxy says, the Depp heard. I heard it's a distraction. Do you feel it's staged? I'm leaning towards all of it's staged. I really do. Everything with Johnny Depp, I mean, I'm sure it's somewhat believable, but it's just like a reality TV show that they recorded in advance and unpack later for ratings. You know, you have the similar drama, almost a parallel story with Marilyn Manson and Evan Wood. This relationships are kind of reversed, but phones are open 833-311-1984. So let me go through this Kanye West thing we talked about with the David Bowie connections, and as this relates to this movie I just watched called, well, Wolf Hour. So Wolf Hour, this is about the summer of Sam during the blackouts in 1977 that occurred on July the 13th. And this is something we talk about quite a lot, these blackouts, because this is where we start to see one of these giveaways that there's a pattern here with some of these major psychological operations. So just as a bit of background here, if you search blackouts 2019, on July 13th, 2019, on the 42nd anniversary of the New York City blackouts that left 9 million customers without power, there was an analogous blackout. And this one put 42,000 people in the dark. So 42nd Street, 42,000 in the dark, 42 years to the day. These are just some of the connections here. And it just seems entirely scripted. But what I was looking at here tonight is the summer of 77 during these blackouts is when you had the Son of Sam doing the shootings. And the Son of Sam was one of these lone nut shooters, but he claimed that he was part of a satanic cult in Yonkers. Anyway, they called him Mr. 44. So this is the connection that I was bringing up here. Mr. 44. Last night, as we were looking into this David Bowie Kanye West connection, we were noting David Bowie's age and the age of the actor playing the man who fell to earth in the new version, both of them being 44, having been born in 77. The number 44 having various meanings, people ascribe to it, but from usage, the number 4 is consistently representing a cross, and we had kind of suggested that 4-4 could be a double cross, which, again, this is another one of these symbols that's used throughout a lot of these Major League psyops. And what does it actually mean? Well, the double cross, there's a few different versions of it, but the one that I think we're looking at here, the double cross, is the cross of resurrection. So the first one is death, the second one, resurrection. So here we have it. Many symbolic interpretations. First bar is death, the second is the resurrection. So my point is, this entire storyline, which I'll go over it again, having to do with Kanye West, David Bowie, and this idea of a prophesied savior being born in 77, it actually has another layer here with the Summer of Sam and the blackouts on 42nd Street that I'm laying out here, that it's unequivocally part of the same storyline. But Mr. 44 adds another element to it, because 44, we're talking about a second coming, essentially. That is what we're talking about. That is what David Bowie was talking about. And that's what we are seeing being played out here with the man who fell to earth. And again, the man who fell to earth is like Superman, a space born savior, like Jesus, a heavenly father, an earthly mother. Similar concept here. So we'll get into this into detail. And yes, Kanye's age is 44. This is why they believe that David Bowie was referencing him in that song, which I'll get into, the song 5 Years. And so is, again, the actor who's playing the man who fell to earth in a role that was previously played by Bowie. And that's another one of these, just another one of these connections that shows you that my premise here is correct. So let's just go over this really quick, and then we'll make some further connections, especially with this Summer of Sam. And it even ties in, interestingly enough, Spike Lee. And when we look at these directors who are putting out the propaganda that seems to correlate to the major psyops, I just refer to them as metascriptors. And just like Tom Clancy, Stanley Kubrick, Alan Moore, Spike Lee is a major metascriptor.
Away. Another angry white kid just about kept away. Greta's going to be pissed.
Yes, the crisis actors are here. They've taken over. That is One-Eye Jack and the Shells, just a bowl cut away. The video was recently purged from YouTube, and it's because it's rather good and it tells the truth. And you can't have good art telling the truth. Thanks everyone for joining. It is 5/15/2022. This is Infinite Plane Sunday Part 2. Earlier today we focused on the PSYOP of the month. I mean, this is just a predictable thing. And we'll dive right into that actually. Let's go ahead and go over a few things without even addressing the video itself. There are plenty of things that are pretty conclusive to me as far as raising questions as to the veracity of the mainstream media's claims. Is there anything to this? Is it real? Is it fake? Well, it's just as fake as the Frank James subway shooting, and it contains many of the same elements. So I'll be going over some of those. I just posted a newsletter that had about 15 or 14 points that I think are relevant with regard to our assessment of this event and why, right on the face of it, I'm comfortable saying it was just agitprop, just a psyop. We're joined by Rocco Calzone, Mitch A. Rocco says, I love the content, share the link. I'm trying to have a buddy call in. He's a Tartarian. I was thinking about Tartaria recently because across the street they're building a Burger King, and right now they just dug the hole and they're just digging down. And I'm like, okay, let me see if I can peek down there and see any red bricks, any evidence of a buried civilization. All right, Eric of Bear Osher, thank you for joining. Moon Harvest. By the way, as we speak, I believe it's eclipsing, which means something. Witches and warlocks rule the world, control the media. It's pretty obvious, so it must mean something, and we'll figure out what here very soon. I mean, we just watched the 56th anniversary of the Church of Satan, seemingly celebrated by a satanic portal above the White House. You know, these events are not coincidental. You have Satan 2 threatening to be launched. Then you have Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that Satan is behind immigration in the Catholic Church. I mean, Satan was really crushing it in the media on that night, which again was the anniversary of the Church of Satan's founding. And there's some eerie connections between the portal above the White House and Astro World. There's a lot of dating site bots that are spamming the chats, and it's not just us, it's all over YouTube. And I think these are the bot wars that were prophesied in Terminator 2. I think we're being overrun by these things, and it's probably to make the case, like for example, my Twitter stock went down 14% because Musk is deciding he's probably not going to buy anything. He's probably not going to buy it because it's mostly bots. So they're going to raise the question, has the internet been taken over by bots? So the AI invasion, the robot invasion, isn't going to be humanoid robot androids like from Boston Dynamics running down the street shooting you. No, it's going to be social media overrun by deepfakes, and they're more interesting and more real in many ways than a lot of the people. You're not going to know the difference. So I think they're going to want to purge all the robots. That might be the next phase. So we have all these adult dating spam bots 24/7, and I think they're trying to create a reaction, like a blowback. They want you to get mad. But that's why I arm every one of you. Imagine if we didn't have a legion of mods in here. It would be unbearable. They used to use government agents to spam us, to get us to not talk about what we're talking about. Now they send obnoxious bots. And what's more, I think there's another agenda here. If they can keep my screen full of these spam bots, they can flag my video as spam. Oh, I'm just here to advertise these dating bots. Joined here by Ted Spaghetti, Zinvalis, Sparkling Water. Zinvalis says, please call in sexy chat adult dating spam bot. You think it has a voice like text to speech? Or you think it's believable? Rich Flat says Twitter's loaded with bots. Oh, it's got to be like 5%, but really, what's the difference? I mean, like for example, a lot of these people, a lot of these empty accounts might be people like me. Like I have about 30 Twitter accounts. So am I going to have a separate, DNA test to verify each one? And what they're doing now, I think, is ultimately just constricting freedom, getting rid of the ability to be anonymous. And now, with this Buffalo shooter, they're bringing this up again. This guy didn't live in the world where he was dealing with immigrants. This person had to drive 3 hours away to find black people to shoot. So, what was his problem? Well, he got it on the internet. So, this is all about mind viruses. He was radicalized online. They're blaming Tucker Carlson because he legitimized the white replacement, right? Was it white replacement? You have white genocide, but he kind of gave it legitimacy in many ways. But it already existed online, so they're suggesting that because I don't think this kid watched Fox News, but they're saying that the internet groups around this made him into the killer, made him into a terrorist. And if you look at the numbers that he shot, and if you look at the actual demographic breakdown, yeah, this was a targeted hit, and he killed exactly who he wanted to kill, and he had it written on his weapon. So this is going to be a really difficult thing to, I don't know, for Tucker Carlson to get out from under. I mean, this can be pinned on him. And they're even finding clips from Joe Rogan. And remember last year, I was predicting that Joe Rogan would take a big fall. Well, then this video came out that had a compilation of all the times he used the N word. And then the N word's on this guy's gun. And now they're finding clips where Joe Rogan is saying, yeah, this white replacement theory makes sense. And this is not new. I brought this up earlier. This replacement theory was no different than the Europe for European stuff that Eric Dubay was getting banned for in 2017. Like, this stuff is all just returned. All right, so let us go ahead and go through the things that I put in the newsletter. And if you want to get on my newsletter, go to timosman.blog. I have a few other ones, but I'm actually, as I'm on 20 different streaming video platforms, I put the newsletter all over the place. That way it can't be censored, and then it gets a lot more traffic instead of having it in just one spot. So if you subscribe to any of the platforms I'm on, if you're a paid subscriber in any of them, you will get the newsletter. I make sure it goes everywhere. Okay, so the MSM uses fear and shock to deter scrutiny. And this is one of the keys here. A lot of people won't even look into it. They won't even watch the video. So who are you to judge if it's real or fake if you can't watch it? If you can't judge it, watch it, I can't judge. Who wants to watch this garbage? I don't watch bad horror movies. But it's part of due diligence for what we do here. So a group of us sat around and watched the video again and again and again. We did screen caps, we slowed it down. We couldn't do it live like we used to because they would shut us down. Sparkling Water says you called it again, IPS. The right wing violence will be highlighted now. Yep, left wing was 2020, 2021. And look, the left wing violence was preceded by the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix, the Burning Man. The bat as Phoenix was the catalyst for the COVID thing, but you're seeing how the Phoenix is the symbol here. And in that movie, he even plays a Phoenix. He dies more or less at the end. He goes unconscious and then he comes back in a very dramatic way with blood on his palms like Jesus because he wipes his blood to give himself a smile. He stands up with his arms out. Well, recently you had a guy named Win Bruce, like Bruce Wayne, setting himself on fire in front of the Supreme Court. So I'm like, here you have your Batman Phoenix after your Batman movie. And again, I think this is all just code, it's all ritual theater. But look where the drama has started. The Supreme Court leak. Okay, so let's move through these. So these are my observations so far that constitute a preponderance of evidence justifying my claims of hoaxery. And I overcame my shock after Christchurch. I almost didn't watch Christchurch, and when I first watched it, it was somewhat shocking. But follow-up viewings kind of revealed things, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's a magazine already there. before he goes in. Then you see evidence of squibs. Then you find out that these are just simulation, these are dummies. You're looking at augmented virtual reality, all kinds of things. So, one, my initial impression upon hearing of this latest shooter was how it was clearly patterned off of previous fake shooters like Brenton Tarrant, Anders Breivik, Patrick Crusius, Dylan Roof, and Nick Cruz. Patrick Crusius was from the Walmart El Paso shooting, had beef with immigrants supposedly because he read about it online. Dylan Roof, Charleston shooting, the really one of the OG bowl cuts, but obviously Dylan Roof a reference to Klebold and Dylan from the Littleton shootings. And then you're also looking at the last name, Dylan Roof, but his middle name, is Storm. What is Storm? Well, the storm is coming. This is all just predictive programming. Nick Cruz, look, Patrick Crusius, Nick Cruz. This is all very significant because the school shooting victims were put together into this group called the Children's Crusade by the Parkland actors because they were too young to vote away guns. So Nick Cruz, of course, was the one from Parkland, but he was the mentally ill one. So this shooter is being described as already had been evaluated for mental illness. The Dylan Roof is obviously the racial component. Patrick Crusius would be the anti-immigrant. Anders Breivik and Brenton Tarrant both had manifestos and were radicalized by the internet. The shooter's been compared to Kyle Rittenhouse, who happened to be trending today, because like Rittenhouse, this guy had to travel to go do his shooting. Also the age, 18. And I was noticing that his face, he kind of looks like Ben Shapiro, who's kind of a right-winger. Probably not a coincidence. Like the El Paso Walmart shooter Patrick Crusius, anti-immigrant sentiment came from the internet. So again, you're looking at an internet radical. His manifesto is basically Brenton Tarrant and Anders Breivik. Honestly, there's a lot of copyright infringement going on with these shooters. Needs to stop. The MSM had an immediate and unified response. So here you have a mass shooting, and within 5 minutes, they're like, okay, this was an internet radicalized terrorist and a product of Fox News. Blame Tucker Carlson. When I saw the phrase white replacement, I thought, oh, Tucker Carlson. Boom. The ADL already gave him hell about it months ago. And sure enough, every other tweet on the topic is like, Tucker Carlson did this. This is because of this. And if you look at the manifesto, yeah, it makes it pretty clear. You can't walk this back. Tucker Carlson has been hit with an effective smear job with this PSYOP. The agenda-driven response was immediate. The government needs to act, Minority Report style, to stop preventable shootings, which means, of course, curtailing free speech on social media. Social media is taking the blame. The timing of the event with the election cycle is too perfect. And obviously, Tucker Carlson has been in the crosshairs for some time. And what we've witnessed so far, because this is a new event, we just woke up and this happened. So this is Scooby-Doo justice. The villain's caught, exposed, deconstructed, they know his motivations, all in the span of one episode of Scooby-Doo. There's no presumption of innocence. Who needs that? Because the MSM is your judge and jury in the court of public opinion that they control, and that's the only one that matters. It also should be remarked that this shooter, Peyton Gendron, he and Brenton Tarrant need to get refunds on their GoPro lenses. Gendron's lens was pixelating throughout the event, and I was noticing that they were using pixelation like a filter to cover up bad editing, to cover up things that are just too hard to fake. So this is my thing, is that either there needs to be a class action against GoPro by all these shooters, or they're using fake glitches to cover up how terrible the video is. And I think that's what they're actually doing. I would even say that there's little reason to think that this wasn't pre-produced because of this. The glitchiness is part of the ruse to make it look live. And why would they do it live anyway? So much could go wrong. So it's not really live. Reportedly, there were only 20 people who saw it, and it was pulled 2 minutes after. And that to me is strange too. That a video with only 20 live viewers would be found even that fast. But it was exaggeratedly and comically glitchy. So it was more a video game than anything. It was just too glitchy to be real. Again, hope they have their receipts for those cameras. This has put Twitch in the crosshairs of big censorship. So with Christchurch and Tarrant, they took down YouTube and Facebook streaming. They're going after Twitch, which is too bad because I was going to start using Twitch on my phone. But, I can't stream from my phone on YouTube because I don't have 1,000 subs. Let me go through the comments here before we get too much further. Mitch A says they spread the video the first few minutes of the guy driving and everybody had that video and they all stopped at the same exact place. Yeah, they spread the video and they had it stop right after the first shooting where it looked like a scene out of The Walking Dead. There's so many holes in this story as there are with all of these shooting psyops. No pun intended. Lando Rocks here says violence from the right wing seems more hoaxy. Yeah, certainly, and I would need to see this person's YouTube account. I would need to see more evidence. I mean, they gave us this Frank James, and it's weird. Frank James, by the way, and we'll get into this later, but Frank James, the subway shooter, the Riddler, yeah, he's bunking with R. Kelly. Listen to this. Accused Brooklyn subway shooter Frank James has made at least one new friend since his arrest for spraying 33 bullets on a crowded New York train. Superstar R. Kelly apparently is now friends with the subway shooter. By the way, on the cover of this Raw Story article, you have the single shoe we were looking for the Buffalo gunman, this shooting. By the way, Buffalo gunman had a Twitter account, QAnon1062021, a reference to the QAnon shaman. He tweeted on 10/19/2021, quote, Q sent me. So think about it. Buffalo shooter, Q sent me, QAnon shaman, buffalo horns, guy with a spear. There's some stuff here we'll get into. Now, with the video, and I'm not going to just play it on here at all because they're using this to take down channels like this one. It's a setup. One of the victims magically appears from the pixelation, only to fall head first, only he stops moving and falling as though frozen in time. His hat flows down, but then it freezes in midair, and then debris appears it looks like a bunch of vaxes all over the ground. They appear all around this levitating, suspended, presumably dead person. And then the pixels wash it all away. Other people there were some live actors in there that were posed on the ground before he even went in. Things were already knocked over. And when we did see any shootings, there was very much a squibbiness to it. And by squibbiness, I mean the weapons, and this is what they do in movies. The trigger remote operates some kind of device on the person that uses a burst of air to spray fake blood. Only there was no blood. This was a bloodless thing. I didn't see any blood. I mean, there was some CGI effects. I really think we're looking at a mix of augmented virtual reality, CGI characters, and real actors, not a live production. And then what's more, the bodies, or the rubber dummies, were left for live streaming witnesses to broadcast. And I spoke on this earlier, but when you're dealing with dead bodies out on the street, you don't leave them out there. Decomposition sets in fast in the heat and the sun. You don't leave them uncovered for people to record. The coroner wouldn't let that happen. And these firemen just lounging around with these bodies right there, not even shielding them, showing no regard for them, that doesn't make sense. I don't see any evidence of any kind of resuscitation, no intubation. One of the bodies is on her side. They didn't even roll it on the back to check to see if there's a pulse. So it looks staged. Again, against the background of this all being so convenient within the media narrative, the fact that it looks staged isn't surprising. And I was also wondering, just based on the pixelation, did NASA produce this? Now here's some other tie-ins to the world stage dramas. The fake events all reference each other. So this shooting was in part retaliation for the Waukesha truck attack, which itself was retaliation for Kenosha. This mirrors the Boulder King Soopers supermarket shooting, which was a retaliation for Christchurch. So they all reference one another to make sure that they all coexist in the same reality and they can all write about them together. So another point that I've raised is that these psyops are preceded by predictive programming in entertainment. So in this case, the Batman movie contained the message, I contend, March 4th right-wing terrorists, implied by the antagonist, the Riddler, who's a parallel to Q. And of course, the release date, March 4th, was the date that the Boston bomber, known as the Joker, had his death penalty reinstated. So March 4th right-wing terrorists, just as the Joker movie preceded the leftist uprising of 2020, I posited that the Batman movie would have an analogous effect, but from the right. All contrived and fake, of course, but now we have it. A racist, terrorist, domestic, extremist, lone wolf shooter radicalized by the right that they can point to. Mission accomplished. Quite a successful psyop, and this is the Buffalo shooting psyop. You can find that at timosmond.blog. If you want to go through, these are my notes. I'm going to expand on it, obviously, because this is not case closed. It's not over yet. These psyops are rolled out over a period of, hours, but then, of course, they extend the story. So there's going to be more. And so you can't say it's real on the first take. There's not enough information. You might know it's fake, but you have to build a case. And we're still building a case here against this thing being real. Joined by A. Garcia, Mitch A. Sink Lloyd, Salty Siren, Restream.io. Michael says decomposition starts after 24 hours. It really depends. There are a lot of conditions. There are a lot of things that could change that. You could have some that are directly in the sun that decompose faster than some that aren't in the sun, but it's not that. I would say rigor mortis sets in after 24 hours. That's more likely the case, but no. It depends on the climate and the weather. For example, one of the first autopsies I assisted in back when I was doing transport in El Paso was a hiker we picked up from a place called Big Ben who fell 250 feet, but it only took a matter of days for it to be completely desiccated, to be unrecognizable. And in other cases, there was one that was hanging in an area that was in a cooler area, and it was like 6 months. And in some ways, he was recognizable enough by a family member, so it just really depends. All right, so one of the things we talked about with this whole meta script, of course, is the left wing, right wing staged theater and how these characters are all molded off of characters that we've seen in movies, that there's predictive programming that make these things utterly predictable. And that's one of the cases against these things being real. If this thing was real, how is it that we are consistently predicting these things with accuracy as they roll out, calling out facets of it in advance? Either we're psychic or these things are just template and it's just that easy to deconstruct them. Michael says, Buffalo's cold, what's the temp? Look, you may argue that maybe it takes 24 hours to decompose out there on the street. I don't know. But I'm just saying that what would be the purpose of leaving bodies out there in the public on display? I don't think that's standard or normal or advisable. And you're looking at an investigation. You're looking at evidence. And the idea that somebody would be out there live streaming it when the next of kin haven't been notified just seems in bad taste. And if you're a fireman and you have 5 of your friends and there's a couple of bodies just sitting there on the ground, don't you think you would probably, I don't know, stand around them, block them, have some sense of reverence or respect? Strange that they don't. I'm going to play a clip here just from, look, we have to be consistent in our critique of things, and I'm just pointing some things out about radicalization and how different people take things and how some people can't handle disagreement. Anyway, I've been called a God blocker and a consciousness assassin because I don't believe in the Mandela effect. Well, apparently, my non belief is very problematic for some people. And if you think back to Greta Thunberg, she's like, how dare you not believe? Because you're not believing in my flood myth is endangering us all. How dare you? Like, she's outraged at our non belief. And to me, that's not a good sell. But anyway, I'm going to play a clip here, about 30 seconds, of one of the leaders of the Mandela Effect group who's really mad at those of us who don't believe. And like I said, I've been called a God blocker because I consistently explain why people have this thing called the Mandela Effect. And it is real. There is an effect. You know, some things are real. But is it the result of reality shifting, or is it the result of some kind of, I would say, cognitive, I wouldn't say cognitive disorder, but I'd say cognitive glitch, like a lens flare in the mind. So I'm going to play 30 seconds just because we are covering this topic, which I believe is part of the big PSYOP entertainment complex.
Know the fucking Panama Canal was east and west. They know all these things. None of you guys knew what Black Palm was until I told you. First major foreign attack on U.S. soil. None of you fucking know nothing about it. We'll just keep saying nothing's going on. You all call the guy Joel Osteen. You all just threw an L in his name, I guess, randomly, because you're all just a bunch of idiots, right? All our memory sucks. All our memory sucks. These fucking people are a fucking joke, dude. I don't give a fuck who's triggered. I don't give a fuck who's triggered. Respond to it. Show everybody how fucking clownish you are.
All right, now, the reason why I mix up Joel Osteen, one, I literally don't care. But two, listen to how it sounds. Joe Osteen, Joel Osteen, or Osteen. Like, it's somewhat ambiguous. And when you look at his logo, the logo itself has L. So it looks like Joe, and then the L is outside of the logo. And this matters because visually it reads like Joe. So then I see Joe, and then I see Austin with the L's right there, so it looks like Joe Alstein. So it's very ambiguous. Is it Joel or Joe? So I don't think it's a reality shifty thing at all. Now Joel Alstein or Austin is shifty, but reality isn't. Let me play a few more seconds of this totally unhinged religious extremist.
Where are the media fakery guys that have been saying this is a fucking psyop? Where are all those 9/11 guys that laugh and snicker behind my back? Those guys are fucking clowns too. They're all in their fucking comfort zone. They're all scared of the supernatural. And you know what else? They're all fucking Mandela affected. All of you. You guys are all swimming in the fucking JV pool. You guys are gatekeeping the biggest fucking phenomenon that's ever happened in the history of fucking mankind.
So there you have it. The Mandela effect is the biggest thing to ever have happened to mankind. So this is why I've been worried that they're going to bring out the forbidden Mandela effect. And I'm afraid I'm the number one target. I mean, I hope I don't get it. The necklacing of Winnie Mandela. All right, let's see here. Now, we're not here for ad hominem. You know, I can take the hits. I don't care. Smarty Pants says he looks like a baby in a high chair. Not ad hominem, just an observation. Joined by Pippi Langstruff. Says yo, spelled with a J. Tim Truth is here. Salty says he sounds like he's losing it. No, he's typical of what you would see with religious leaders when they have to put down the non-believers. And this serves two purposes. One, it helps, I think, maintain the flock. Like, okay, we're not going to leave because we don't want to be subject to that. And then two, of course, I think it causes people to take the idea a little bit more. Maybe not seriously, but I don't know. Maybe it works. They are growing, right? It works with some people. Some people like fire and brimstone. And this idea that it's supernatural. Okay, now this is the thing here. I'm not denying the supernatural. I'm denying that there's evidence for it because by definition it's supernatural. I talk about synchronicity often. I talk about patterns that go beyond any sort of causal connections that you could point to and say, like, it's almost like you could make arguments for, in some ways, some sort of cybernetic relationship between the perceiver and the perceived. Maybe not sim necessarily, but that's one way of describing it. But the Mandela effects are very specific, and they are specifically created effects based on a very specific way of asking a question involving, well, one, tainted witnesses. Brian Staveley is a tainted witness. Two, faulty eyewitness testimony induced by a few things. Narrowing the options of how many different versions of this or that event there could be. Either or, either or, either or. Why is that? It's because it's a psyop. It's meant to steer you. This is all part of the interrogator bias. And this explains everything about the so-called Mandela effects. This is why popularly misheard or misremembered song lyrics aren't considered reality shifts. Now, again, what we're looking at here, though, is, I would say, a real effect, but the effect is the effect of not understanding how memory works, or the overbearing influence that the questioner or the interrogator can bring. That's a very important point, and this is why you have the Innocence Project, getting people exonerated, people who've been wrongfully convicted because of eyewitness testimony. These are very well-known and well-established things. There's a scientific basis for these claims. There are observations and studies that show the faultiness of eyewitness testimony. Very well known. So the idea that you can say, I can argue from my memory that this is true, well, it's very dubious, especially when your claims are based on things that are provably false, or your memories are so shallow that they're really not substantive in any way that can convince me, anyway, that reality has shifted. I often ask, how did Timmy get out of the well if Timmy fell into the well, if everybody knows Timmy fell in the well? Nobody knows how Timmy came out of the well. There's no answer. All right, let me play a few more seconds. Rich Flat says, reminds me of a WWF interview. Okay, let's continue. This is, again, the most dangerous gatekeepers on the flat earth. And it's fair to respond, this isn't ad hominem, I'm not seeking this out, but I've been called the God blocker. And so I want to know, where this particular movement is at, if they're so threatened by someone like me who's pointing out the obvious.
Clown show! You want real truth? Follow this fucking channel and people like us. We're not gonna gatekeep the fucking supernatural, you motherfuckers.
All right. Let's move on. Predator996 says, buy followers, primes, and viewers on mountviewers.com. See, you're the problem, Predator996. Flooding the internet with bots, with NPCs. You're the reason why Musk didn't buy Twitter and save free speech. So let's go through some headlines here. Breaking Buffalo shooter. Now think about this, Buffalo shooter. QAnon shaman, Buffalo horns. Buffalo shooter's Twitter account was QAnon1062021. He said Q sent me. Back on 10/19/2021. Buffalo shooter used the same neo-Nazi symbols as Ukrainian Azov Battalion. Now, something else that should be pointed out here, Buffalo shooter used the same neo-Nazi symbols as Hibbler Productions and the new Flat Earth documentary. Here's one from 100% effed up. Disgusting Dems don't even wait for bodies to be identified, begin to blame Tucker Carlson for Buffalo shooting. Yeah, it didn't take them long at all. After the Boston bombing, even before we knew who did it, Michael Moore Cheeseburgers was out there tweeting, and he said, obviously it's tax day, it's a right-wing terrorist. Like, they were already blaming and scapegoating white, right-wing terrorists. And finally they managed to find one. I'm like, they've been threatening this, they've been preparing for it, they've been using predictive programming, and then Frank James comes out, and I'm like, they cast the wrong actor here. The Riddler looked more like Bill Gates. But nope, they're finally back on it. And this one is going to stick. I believe that this is the psyop of the summer. This is the one that's going to kick it all off. And one of the other elements that I kind of pointed out here, I want to reiterate here, is that you have this back and forth. So this shooting was in part retaliation for the Waukesha truck attack. He had the name of one of the victims on his weapon. Now that attack was a retaliation for Kenosha when Kyle was exonerated. So you have this back and forth. After George Floyd, you had a similar situation where you had that Michael Rowanhart shooting Jay Danielson, the prayer patriot there in Oregon. Coincidentally at 8:46 p.m. George Floyd 8:46, prayer patriot 8:46, and when he shot the guy, he said he called it the first shot of the Second Civil War. And of course, they've made quite a lot about this particular psyop. That was from August 29th, 2020. And this is before everyone knew that the Proud Boys were all feds. Aaron Danielson, American supporter of far-right group Prayer Patriot, was shot and killed after being in a pro-Trump caravan. He went by the alias Jay. But my point being, this was done as a retaliation for Floyd. It was done by an Antifa. And it was live streamed. This was another one of these live streamed psyops. One other thing here, he was shot at 3rd and Alder at 8:46 p.m. They had to use the 8:46 because that ties into the 9/11ing, the fracturing of America. Totally staged and fake. And the retaliation, the shooting of the shooter, also fake. All right, let's see. I'm going through your comments. Lochnar says, prove that it's supernatural. I want to see a Mandela effect in real time. I saw a video where a guy was walking through a room and his Berenstain Bears was changing, but it was all just an app he was using. Like QAnoners, they have to fake their evidence. Lean Dion says the Buffalo shooter's car was a Taurus. Thought that was interesting. I should have noticed that, but I was too distracted by the Ford logo. And I was like, man, that's going to mess with the Mandela effect, because the Ford logo has a little swirly on the F, and they say it's a reality shift. Now, just to point out the facts here, the Ford logo has a swirly on the F. Well, that swirly is kind of an insider reference if you know the relationship between Henry Ford and Thomas Edison. It's kind of like Laverne and Shirley. And they had a few homes next to each other, but if you cover up the bottom half of the screen or the logo, you will see TE for Thomas Edison on top of the word Ford. So it's kind of built into it. So if this little swirly is a Mandela effect, then what do you make of the relationship of Thomas and Henry? Sorry, there's just too much there for it to be a mere reality shift. I can't roll with that one. All right, let us continue. Getting sidetracked here a little bit. The pixelation is something we're going to have to get back to as well. The pixelation used to hide the fakery, kind of like they did with the David Bowie Death Faker interview. He comes back from the dead, and every time the character, was it Jack Stevens, looks a little too Bowie-ish, they throw pixels over his face. Same thing with SpaceX. Maybe SpaceX produced this psyop, because whenever one of these things lands, it's like the rocket's about to land, then you just see a bunch of pixels, and then it's just magically there. The levitating corpse I talked about appeared out of a cloud of pixels. Lean Dion says this is a big one. Oh yeah, I think this is the psyop of the summer. This is the one that will catalyze some big movement. And I pointed out in Phoenix, you had right-wingers with guns and masks, ironically. These guys were protesting masks. Now they're wearing masks. They're wearing masks that have the skull on it. So they're protesting the pro-life people with the skulls and the guns are protesting against the abortion crowd in Phoenix. So I see guns with skulls, and then I see them protesting this group. Meanwhile, this thing's going down in Buffalo. Tominoid said, I was also thinking Buffalo. The Chappelle event was kind of like a charging bull. Fascinating. Tominoid says, the sun transits from this sign approximately May 15th, June 15th in sidereal astrology. Yeah, the Taurus, the bull thing can't be a coincidence. All right, let us continue. And if you're asking for wrenches, I'll be handing them out as I can. And FYI, I'm on 14 different video streaming channels, and we're on 2 different audio streaming. We're on a few different places you can find us, but I'm locked out of 3 or so of the YouTube channels because of, well, the censorship attempts. I keep the keys. Whenever I get a channel verified for streaming, I save the keys because I know they're going to shoot these down. So I'm able to access the channels and still use them. But ultimately, you're going to want to go to infiniteplanesociety.com and get on the newsletter. Or just join $2 a month, patreon.com/infiniteplanesociety. Memes are free. Take as many as you want. No one's going to search your pockets as you exit the facility. So you have a link there, patreon.com/infiniteplanesociety. $2 per month gets you into the Discord server. All right, I'm going to open up phones, 833-311-1984. If you have anything to say about this topic, let me go ahead and start with
Tim.
Oh, okay, that one's... Yeah, we had someone who was not cool with our eagerness to call this a hoax and to disrespect the potential victims. And so I thought today was a good time to just kind of bring up the topic of auto-hoaxing versus giving pathological liars the benefit of the doubt. The mainstream media is the NWO church. Do you want to give Satan's pulpit the benefit of the doubt? Go for it. Be my guest. Give these lying crisis actors all of your loosh. I have no intention of doing that. No intention of backing down. And we have established a methodology for deconstructing fake news real time. And there's no way I'm ever going to go back to passively believing these lies. I couldn't do it. There's no way. It's like once you've gone past the layer of, of green screens, that once you see through the techniques of manipulation, the visual manipulation, you can't really unsee it. It's all about knowing that you're seeing a magic show. Lochnar said, I didn't see any blood in the pictures of the shooting. Yep. Yep, exactly. Now, if you've ever played Grand Theft Auto or Halo or any of these first-person shooters, the game's not going to be shocking. You're going to say, it's only shocking that the graphics are so terrible. Wow, when did reality have shittier graphics than my game system? That's what you would say. Nothing shocking about it. Jenna Lovecraft Reeves says it's their monthly sympathy harvest. Yep, exactly. They're feeding it to some kind of demiurge demon. Maybe during the eclipse they're gonna suck up all the tears of these easily manipulated matrix batteries. And I'm not cold. I don't lack empathy, like the person I was debating this morning had said. I don't lack empathy. It is my overabundance of empathy that allows me to perceive the lies. I don't think you can be apathetic. I don't think you can be a misanthrope and see through the stuff, because one, you wouldn't notice it, and the other, you wouldn't care, or you'd be going along with it. Now, as far as it being an actual killing, like some people will say, oh, it's fake, or rather, the media is lying, but it's real. Like, people died, but the guy was a patsy, or the FBI sent the shooter, or is MK Ultra. Anybody who says that is using a guardrail, is what I call it. So guardrail conspiracies are conspiracies that still keep the main part of the story intact, but they just differ on who did it. They'll say, oh, it's a false flag to frame us. They won't say it's a hoax. Why? Because they work for the MSM. There's no other explanation at this point. I can understand 2018, 2019, but after 2020, if you don't know about the PSYOP entertainment complex, if you don't know how integrated it is, one, you lack discernment, or two, you're an operative. There's really no middle ground here. A phase polarizer says in reality, blood pisses out everywhere. Interesting turn of phrase, and I tend to agree. I don't really like to reach to anecdotal evidence, but we have to go to whatever kind of observations we can. There are people everywhere, and everyone sees what they can. And for my part, I recently pointed out how the city morgues, or the ones in the hospitals, were closed for 2020. Why? To necessitate using the outdoor freezers. Why? To give the appearance that the hospitals were full. The tents were empty, the hospitals were empty, but you have these morgue freezers outside, and they show you pictures of it. Well, yeah, these were basically dead crisis actors. And I don't know if those families agreed to it. Yeah, you can use my dead loved one as a crisis actor to boost ratings, boost fear, boost budgets. I mean, it is just such a scam. But yeah, they literally closed the interior one and used the outside one. And I know this because of the recent job that I had. And then the person mentioning about the blood, yeah, I would agree with that. Uh, again, I could point to some things anecdotally about blood from what I've seen. And yes, that is conspicuously lacking. And oftentimes, the hoax is given away by what they don't show you. Oftentimes, they're too minimalistic or they're lacking in detail, and it's given away by what should be there but isn't. But if you don't know, you may not notice. It's harder to notice what isn't there that should be there, so people kind of give these things a pass. Lochnar said, either you're an auto hoaxer or a shill. At this point, yes, quite literally, because if you believe the mainstream lies at face value until they're proven fake, then you're already in the metaverse. You're already through the screen. It's literally that. You're on this side of the green screen or that side. I'm on the other side and have been for some time, and I keep a hard position on this. I don't waver. I don't let people say, well, maybe this one's real. I'm like, no, unless you're willing to tell me that the next NASA launch is going to be real, you can't tell me the next shooting might be real. It's the same production. And if you're going to say this is real, you're going to have to provide me special evidence beyond what the MSM has produced because they haven't met the burden of proof. But, conversely, I can say it's fake because I can point at reasons. And these are well-reasoned arguments. And these other ones are fake, provably fake, laughably fake. I can point to many different reasons why I would say so. And so for this one to be templated off of those in 99 out of 100 ways, to think it real is just absurd. It's the preponderance of evidence. Going through comments, people are mentioning Ola Demigard. Yeah, look, there are many people out there who call the news fake, but they'll believe outer space is real. There are people who'll say the moon landing's fake, but the space station is real. I'm sorry, but the space station is faker than Apollo 11. Lean Dion says there was a birds are fake meme in Pentaverate. Yeah, Pentaverate was a hit piece on conspiracy theorists, and weirdly enough, their Illuminati had penguin masks. Well, plague masks. But they looked like penguinati. So that was kind of strange. They also had a guy that reminded me of D. Marble. The guy in the van life, using a litter box. It wasn't a litter box, but D. Marble did a video for Van Life where he was showing how to use kitty litter. I think he said he was making compost, but I don't think that's how that works. But again, you have three different ways of looking at the news. The default is auto believer. The auto believer is the one who believes it's real unless it's proven a hoax. Like, oh, the news is all real except for Jussie Smollett. If it's a hoax, they would tell us. So the auto believer is naive. They don't know the TV lies. The auto hoaxer is well appraised of the lying nature of media, of the biased nature, and of the psyops. So the auto hoaxer, realizing that this is psy-war, is prepared to say, if it's extraordinary, out of the ordinary, and if it goes along with some big time political agenda, if it's fakeable, it's fake until proven real. I don't have to accept it as real without the attendant evidence, and they generally don't meet our standards, which leaves us with a lot of fake news that we've deconstructed and a lot of, lies we no longer believe in, things we no longer fear. But there's another group. The third group is the auto disbeliever. The auto disbeliever is kind of a new phenomenon. They're basically like indiscriminate auto hoaxers. Like they have the right idea. Yeah, news is fake. But they go too far, where they don't have the methodology to know which parts are real and which are fake. And so if you automatically disregard it all or you ignore it entirely, that wall of ignorance doesn't protect you from the results of the hypermediation that they impose upon the lemmings. So then when the COVID came around, maybe you didn't have a clue. You wouldn't have had a clue it was fake. You would have gone with the flow. You wouldn't have any alternative networks of people who were paying attention. So you're either misinformed, uninformed, or you're like us and you're informed. We're informed. We're more informed than the propagandists who don't know how much of what they're spewing is true. We are not uninformed. I'm not confused. I'm not ambiguous. I'm not asking myself, is that real or fake? I pretty much know what I know and the limits of what I can know. But I know also that you can't make that determination knee-jerk. You really do need to go through the process, the due process, which the media doesn't do anymore. There is no due process. There's no presumption of innocence. If the media says you're guilty, you're guilty. Thank you, user offline. Appreciate the support, and obviously appreciate everyone here keeping us 100% independent so we can say whatever we want. We can stay true to the truth. What is it Orwell said? The truth sounds like hate to those who hate the truth. Lochner says they've been faking news for a long time. The entire Wild West narrative was a hoax with actors involved. Yeah, that's another thing too. They didn't start faking the news with Sandy Hook. They've been faking the news since the news started. And I mentioned this the other day. The news is basically the new media. The new media, rather, is the new religion of the world. That religions have been supplanted by media, quite literally. So the old school fake news of the past has just been updated with the new technology. But if they fake the news today and then it becomes history over time, what makes you think that history is any more reliable than the news of today? And this is why we have to keep it in check. This is why we need a parallel narrative. This is why we need to knock down the fake stories so that at least we have a record of what's not true, even if we don't have all the answers as to what is. Because those false explanations will prevent you from finding things that you would otherwise find. They prevent your curiosity. They prevent you from raising questions. And it's just a matter of time till they come for your question marks. That's why they made the Riddler the antagonist in the new Batman. And the Penguin, by the way. I was like, penguins and question marks. Lean Dion says he was arrested and pictured in combat boots, but there's a New York Times picture of his helmet and combat boots left on the scene. Oh yeah, I can't wait for the continuity errors to start showing up. All right, let us continue. We're going through the headlines. Erie, son of retired cop who died attacking the shooter, predicted everything about it before it happened. Okay, so the retired cop who died had predicted this would happen. Aaron Salter Jr. died trying to stop 18-year-old Peyton Gendron from killing innocent shoppers and workers in the Buffalo area Tops supermarket. It says here, on August 9th, 2019, Aaron Salter III responded on Facebook to a 3 August 2019 shooting in El Paso that left 23 dead. Okay, so he responded on Facebook to the Walmart shooting that I've referenced, the one with Patrick Crusius. And he said this, and this is the guy who supposedly died, quote, If I hear another story of someone mass shooting innocent people like yesterday, or the 20-year-old Missouri who went to Walmart and recorded himself making comments, I'm going to lose my mind. We can't even do everyday stuff without having to watch our backs. So he had made comments about this previous event. Then he said, the sad thing is, I feel like a crazy close to home is going to do something soon, and I'm not ready for that. We, as people of the so called United States, need to do better. This shit is nuts. So, what we're looking at here is this person had predicted the way that he would die in a very eerie way based off of the Walmart shooting, which was a hoax. Remember PFC Oakley? I mean, they got that story wrong in so many ways. Number of people are coming up with anagrams for his name, Peyton Gendrus. Stop androgens. Interesting. Another one I saw was, I think Lean Dion put this out there, was Anon Poser. Yeah, Anon Poser. We're joined by MC Dirty Work. Thanks for joining, and the text alerts will resume tomorrow. I had to refill my credits, so that's going to resume tomorrow. So Governor Hochul says more social media monitoring is needed to stop hate crimes before they happen. Did I not say in my newsletter, Minority Report? Stop crimes before they happen. If they just listened to me, they could stop crimes before they happen. I said at the end of 2020, we need to quarantine the 33-year-olds for an entire year. January 6th, 33-year-old Jake and Jelly killed democracy with his Viking costume and spear by running into the Capitol. CNN.com, the terrorists among us, how to stop them. The domestic terrorism that took place Saturday takes a familiar recurring theme. Yeah, this is definitely the psyop of the summer. If you look at his photography, in my opinion, these are good photos. What I mean is great lighting. I would say professional level photography. The one on the left, like I think this is a coached, like this looks like it was done in a studio. Probably multiple takes. But this has been pointed out in Discord that the right eye is a little squinty. Typical one eye symbolism kind of insinuated here. But this was his hair before the shooting where he had an obvious bowl cut on. Buffalo shooting suspect allegedly made a threat in 2021 and underwent a mental health evaluation. So, I was thinking about this. Was he wearing a mask when he went into the place and started shooting the place up? Like, wouldn't it be better that he went in there masked with a gun than unmasked without a gun? Just assuming everything they tell us on the news is real, specifically about the various, we'll just say viruses, I mean, the various variants of these things. If you go by their reports about how dangerous these things are, how deadly they are, and the reason why we had to put up with face diapers in the first place, wouldn't it be better that a shooter goes in with a mask on, then goes in with no gun and no mask? And the answer is yeah, because you can go in with a gun and maybe you can kill 13 people. But if you go in there with no mask, you could kill everybody, quite literally, because everybody in there gets infected. They spread it to their family, so you kill their families. Somebody from their family doesn't wear their mask, and it spreads. So the idea is that you're more of a mass murderer as a super spreader than with the weapon. Just pointing it out. If we go by the numbers, and they do. Like, do you remember after the COVID lockdown started, NASA started publishing photos of Earth from space, and they said, look, the air is so much cleaner that more lives will be saved from clean air than will be lost to the virus. So they kind of made the argument that the virus is good for the planet. that once a year, let's just have a pandemic. Clean up the waters, clean up the sky a little bit. All right, let's see. This is from The Guardian. Buffalo shooting. Biden says that the racist killing of 10 people is abhorrent to the fabric of the nation. Again, this is an election year. This is so perfectly timed. New York City climate radicals demand climate justice now. Climate justice is going to have to take a back seat. Look at this person in the background actually crying. Do you remember Extinction Rebellion? They're like gluing themselves to planes. You know what's really... This is all just, again, going to take the back seat. But what's really kind of funny about all of this is that these days it's not uncommon to see climate change hysterics with signs that say the end is near. Like I always talk about how global warming's a flood myth for an atheistic New World Order religion. That the atheists don't believe in God, they laugh at sin, but they fear viruses. They laugh at holy water, but they douse themselves in hand sanitizer. That they don't believe in flood myths because that's a joke. But they believe in global warming and space arcs that can save them. If Elon Musk can, build enough, or if you can afford a ticket. So my point is, they laugh at the religious people who carry signs, the end is near, judgment is near, but now they're literally the religious nutcases carrying signs that say the end is near. The climate hysterics are religious nutcases. And they want their God to punish you. Phase Polarizer says social media crackdown. I think so. I think this is ultimately about furthering the agenda to censor the internet. They're targeting Twitch. But I want to make this point that we are not conspiracy theorists here. What we engage in is on another level. It's media criticism. It's film criticism. What we're doing is more akin to philosophy than anything. And anyone who takes our ideas seriously here would never be motivated to commit any kind of violence. If anything, we engage in inactivism. We're very active and proactive in our assessment and in our research, but we don't engage on the world stage. We're watching a movie, and we know it. They reach for ammo, we reach for popcorn. And it's going to stay that way because we know what's real and what's fake. We're not confused. And if this thing was real, by some strange twist, if this thing was real, he was motivated by a bunch of fake shootings. So the media created a copycat. I don't believe it's real. Going through some comments. Lochnar says, gotta love the blue and yellow Smokey Bear. Hey, you said Smokey Bear, not Smokey the Bear. That's going to be of comfort to some Mandela affected. Yeah, there you go. You notice that one. All right, let's move on from this. The climate change fanatics are going to have to take a back seat. Nobody cares. Steve Bannon from Breitbart is... I often wondered, could Steve Bannon be Andrew Breitbart in a fat suit? Steve Bannon is the latest in long list of MAGAs pushing Putin propaganda while recklessly Russia openly talks nukes. The talk has been about Satan too. Meanwhile, there's a satanic portal above the White House. Russian TV jokes about missiles hitting London as Putin propaganda reaches a new level. And I was thinking too, it would make sense for Russia to take advantage of the chaos in America. So once something goes down like what just happened, we have riots in the street, we have, obviously Biden has demonstrated that they have no power to stop mobs from burning police precincts. So whatever happens is going to happen. They're going to let the whole thing burn. And then Russia's going to drop Satan on Seattle. Or maybe the space station will fall. Something's going to happen though. All right, let's see here. I'm not a doomsayer. I don't want these things to happen. I say these things with full awareness that these are hoaxes. We are pre-auto hoaxing. It'll keep your stress levels down to know, hey, by the way, the next major fill-in-the-blank shooting is fake. The next terrorist attack is fake. And if we didn't have a point, if we didn't have an effective methodology, we wouldn't be correct. I predicted this back in March. I said you're going to see right-wing terrorists, and look, this is undeniably the case. It's too perfectly scripted. Opinion: it won't be long before extremists in the GOP make Trump look tame. This psyop is perfectly timed to take down a number of politicians. I mean, they're not going to be able to explain this away. The white replacement theory is not new. Again, this was something that was been recycled. I think it came back from maybe 2017. So much recycled agitprop, but people have very short memories. They only care about borders every 2 years, every 4 years. All right, let me run through my Twitter feed. By the way, my Twitter account now is twitter.com/Tim Osman _. My other one was banned. I thought this was going to be free speech absolutism with Elon Musk buying into Twitter, but no. Just the other day I was on Twitter and I commented on a home invasion, and all I said was, "Why didn't he shoot them all?" And I got my account yanked, just like that. You know who else isn't free speech absolutists anymore? You got the free speech absolutism of QPatriot.org, which is kind of a QAnon themed Twitter knockoff. But they don't let you say space is fake. You can talk about anything, but you can't say space is fake. Why is that? You can't say it because Space Force is part of the myth that they've been building. All right, so let me go through my Twitter feed again. It's real. So I know it's Tim Osman _. Siri spelled backwards is Iris. Siri, are you watching me? That's correct. You have the all-seeing eye in your pocket. It's amazing how they pulled that off. Here's an image of Russian Orthodox church leaders blessing a rocket called Satan. Now, these Orthodox priests are always blessing the rockets of the astronauts before they take off. This is all just, you would call it phallus worship. That's literally what it is. They worship the obelisk. They worship the rocket. They worship the missile. I pointed out that the fake missiles from North Korea that look like they bought them from Bezos. Like, these are just used rockets. They spray paint them olive drab. Totally shoddy, crappy special effects, laughingstock of the billionaire blimp club. North Korea's rockets are just another way of the world religion representing its obelisk, its earth god. So that's all you're seeing. This is all just veneration of the earth god disguised as a rocket, and it's called Satan too. But yes, a little bit of weirdness there. Orthodox priests blessing Satan too. And the name Satan 2, I think, also corresponds to T2, Terminator 2, Pluto 2, as in Pluto Return, that we just experienced, Pluto, Hades, Lord of the Underworld. There's quite a lot there. I have the Crew 4 mission patch. This is from Space Force. It's got a dragonfly design. These people are so disconnected from reality. And being in Space Force, I think it just means you're in front of a computer screen. You're not going to be in an X-Wing fighter. So, Jack Posobiec, right-winger, big Pizzagator, he exposed it at the very beginning. This is his take on the event. So just so you know, this is where the blue-pilled, guardrailed, right-wing controlled media is going to go with this, because they don't know. Jack Posobiec, veteran Navy intel officer, does not know about crisis actors. He can't figure it out for some reason. Why is that? Here's his response. There was a guy shooting people in DC with a sniper setup while live streaming. This took place last month in our nation's capital. It's been memory hold. New York subway, Waukesha Parade 2. So, in order to ignore the fact that his bro, Tucker Carlson, sent the shooter to Buffalo, he brings up three other events to say, well, it's about race now, apparently. That's what he's saying here. He's saying, well, we didn't pay attention to these guys that did it, but we have to. See, this is all, again, they're going to point to the double standard, and they're not going to question the reality of the event. Was it even real? So he's playing into the black versus white psyop. That's how you know you can't trust someone like this. And I know he doesn't read, he wouldn't read my tweets, I'm sure. But I told him this earlier, and a few other people, I've said the same thing. I said, I just try to explain to them, but there's nothing we can do at all. Jack, the event was fake, as was the sniper. That was such a phony one there, the sniper in the Capitol. Obviously, he's not going to be able to respond to this. I've given up. You're not going to sway them. They're on the world stage. They're in a cult. Oh, never mind. I can't tweet on that one. We've temporarily limited some of your account features. I'm trying to live tweet here. Getting live banned. Somebody kill the bots. We're having bot wars in the chat. Lochner says, I think NATO gave it the name Satan. No, it's called Satan 2. The black and white one. Let me see if there's another explanation for that. Is it just a nickname? Russia makes new threats over the use of Satan 2 hypersonic missile. Okay, the RS-28 Sarmat, known in the West as Satan 2. Fascinating. Now it says here, Putin did his best to put a menacing spin on Russia's testing of a new intercontinental ballistic missile. All right, anyway, this is a bit of nuclear saber rattling. I don't believe in nukes unless I look at these images, and look, once you become visually literate to the fakery, you can't unsee it. So if you watch enough NASA rockets that are totally fake, then you look at these ones, it's like, oh, it's the same terrible special effects department. What is this, a blimp? A cylindrical blimp, an airship with jet-assisted takeoff? It could be any number of things. Do you remember that Sideways rocket? I believe it was it Astra? There was one of these companies, one of these independent Astra. So Astra's rocket, they called this an anomaly. And you may not have seen this before, but basically, this rocket, for some weird reason, even though the engines point down, it goes sideways. And I think this is just amateur rocket fakery. And I'm thinking, watch, as you watch, it'll blow sideways. Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. As in, it's hovering. So what are we looking at here? And it goes off like a balloon. Like maybe the wind is more than 10 miles per hour. Here's another one. Watch Astra's rocket go sideways. Of course, they have their explanations, but to me, the most obvious explanation is, yeah, you're looking at a blimp, a very thin blimp, a cylindrical blimp, and once it goes out of sight, out of mind, they simply switch it out for CGI. So again, here is the footage.
Launches of recent times, or all time to be honest. The rocket lost one of 5 engines almost immediately, and with a thrust to weight ratio of 1, it pretty much went sideways, hovering laterally across the landscape until...
Yeah, it was pretty comical, and then it went up. Again, this is a glitch. Very glitchy. Very, very consistent with a lot of these videos we've seen that are very suggestive of blimps. That's why we call them the Billionaire Blimp Club. And the primary purpose is not to take you to your special paradise in the sky. No, it's for them to worship their Earth God under the guise of doing science. It's just a religion. Like I said, the atheists out there with their signs, the end is near, because they believe in climate change. Yeah, well, they still pray to obelisks. They just don't know it. All right, so this is a developing story. We'll continue to follow the story of Peyton Gendron as more emerges. Everything about it says PSYOP, but I'm more looking for its subtext now. I posted a blog, and I'll continue to share it, that has a list of all the anomalies that I find, and of course the connections to other events that are beyond coincidence. We're looking at a world stage production that exists in the same fictional universe as these other events. All of these school shooters, all these bowl cuts, yeah, they all exist in the same place, in the same fictional universe. And I find this to be really interesting to find out that R. Kelly is hanging out with Frank James, who sprayed 33 bullets on that train. And that was another one of these psyops worth looking at, because they had a hard time popping the squibs on the ground. It's like they're trying to squeeze ketchup packets. But anyway, knowing that Frank James is just a psyop character mirroring the Riddler in the Batman movie, knowing this, finding out that he's hanging out with R. Kelly, really throws doubt onto this R. Kelly story, and how real is this, and how many of these public celebrity idols falling from grace are just hoaxes in and of themselves. All right, everyone, this has been great, an excellent follow-up. I think it's important to withhold absolute judgment on these events, but at the same time, recognize that we're part of a group doing investigation, and it's in progress. So we may not have all the answers, but the weight of, I believe, what we've observed, the weight of the evidence they provide, when you put it together, it's like clearly we're looking at a political psychological operation designed to bring up various other events and connect it with recent characters like Kyle. It's all about continuing the demonization of the right, of free speech, the influence of the internet that can turn an 18-year-old into a terrorist. It adds more to the race war narrative they've been building, this helter-skelter, which is very timely as well. I mentioned that the Buffalo shooter, had a Twitter account referencing the QAnon shaman with the buffalo horns. His tweet, the Buffalo murderer's tweet, was "Q sent me," directly mirroring the Q shooter. So you have the Q connection thrown in with the Fox News scapegoating. We've discussed pretty much every aspect about it, including the use of pixelation to hide the fakery, and the addition of augmented virtual reality victims. That's another thing they've done here, is they've added virtual reality victims. Like, they're basically putting digital artifacts in there along with the actors and actresses, which is pretty smart. You're not going to have any whistleblowers from these synths, these CGI inserts. So then when I have people telling me you better hesitate before you rush to judgment, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, it's like, I'm not really worried about the feelings of CGI NPCs. These are not even real crisis actors. And if they can get you to not comment or investigate for fear of hurting someone's feelings, or if they can get you to not look at something because of the fear of how traumatic it might be, or because of how shocking they've described it as, this is just subtle but definite emotional manipulation. They know they can use their emotions to prevent you from engaging these things critically. Earlier this week, or last week now, we were talking about the Moonfall movies' correlation to the Luna collapse. Again, Luna collapsing from some $85 or something down to zero, echoing Moonfall, which came a year after Crypto to the Moon. So that Moonfall ongoing story, questions have been asked: was Terra crashed deliberately? BlackRock denied a role. Yeah, Terra Luna coin lost 98% of its value overnight. And of course, this is bringing in the expected cries for more regulation. All right, so this should be an interesting week. I imagine that things are going to heat up, so we'll keep everything real time. We'll continue our real time breakdown, but everything here was predicted in the Batman movie, March 4th, right wing terrorists. So here it is. And now we can watch the clueless world stagers argue over who is responsible for it. Meanwhile, no one's saying it was fake. This is Solemnite Fly, auto hoax produced by DJ Ready Rel. And we're going to return to the 24/7. Thanks for joining.
Ready Real.
CIA be lurking, I be in the turban. Little ones stay cursing, older ones out twerking. Talking about lack of education, streets are always dangerous. Bluetooth speakers playing, do you really hear what they saying? Do you know what that mean? Are you down for the team? They speak through signs and symbols, you can learn about these things. Live by 9/11, Club of 27. Once you think that they in heaven, nah bruh, it's a legend. It's all according to the code. Them Illuminati on my mind, body, and my soul. That's why they snatching bodies, everybody in a Holly Grove. Deception is a hobby, switching roles with the auto clone. We call that an auto hoax.
Man, what you trying to prove? Don't you know we've been around the globe and been to the moon?
Get it, that's an auto hoax.
You tripping, times two. What about the shootings that they always cover on the news?
Real, that's an auto
They
hoax.
don't move, we will make the way. Let it spray, right reality like an AKA. Let them know we don't play. They live like life's a party, but it's really like a breakaway. Meditate, focus your attention on your better days. You know what I'm talking about. Don't let these slimy narcissists, antichrist out there turn your eye. Freedom of speech is actuality. That's why the truth must spread by word of mouth, word of mouth. It's all according to the code. Damn Illuminati with my mind, body, and my soul. That's why they snatching bodies, everybody in a Holly Grove. Deception is a hobby, switching roles with the auto clone. Let me turn on my auto hoax. Not even a proven fact. The floor curves into a spinning ball, and you can test for that.
Globe is an auto hoax.
Man, you must be trolling me. Scientific theories aren't what they are shown to be.
Yup, that's an auto hoax.
So what you're saying is you don't accept the claim that's missing proof, then you label it.
Exactly, it's an auto hoax.
Wow, sports is scripted by the number code. What do I really don't? Let me turn on my auto hoax.
Squad.
Let me turn on my auto hoax and look this stuff up when I get home.
It is May 15th, 2022, another Infinite Plane Sunday. Thank you all for joining. It's 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Notifications went out a little while ago. This is Lucifer Tim, 33rd degree. We're going to be discussing the Buffalo shooter here in just a moment. Phones are open, 833-311-1984. Okay, this one should be fun. This is basically America's Christ Church, and these are very sensitive topics. These psyops are very targeted. They target, really what they're targeting here is the cohesion that we have as a nation, and they're dividing and conquering day after day with these psyops. And I want to say that I called it here. If you've been listening, you know that back in March I called it. I said the Batman movie, March 4th, the code in the movie is March 4th right-wing terrorists. We're going to see right-wing terror. And specifically the movie, March 4th, of course, the Batman movie, like the Joker movie I was just predicting, would be a predictor of what's to follow, what kind of archetypes are being projected. And in that movie, they projected the Riddler, the Q. He's basically Q, who radicalizes his online community into going into the streets and committing acts of violence. And recently, when Bruce a name suspiciously close to Bruce Wayne, set himself on fire. He phoenixed himself in front of the Supreme Court. So the Joker movie, played by Joaquin Phoenix, precedes a summer of psychotic mob violence. And so I'm expecting this Batman movie coming out on March 4th to precede a summer of dark MAGA rising, right-wing terror. And look, right on time. We got Frank James, who's literally out of the movie. He's basically the Riddler. But they put this idea out there. Hey, the Riddlers are there. You know, the guys with the questions, the cues, the ones who need these online communities for a sense of identity. And sure enough, we have this shooter who basically follows every single pattern, every predictable stereotype you would expect. He even grew out his bowl cut prior to the shooting. He looks like Ben Shapiro. But his motives and his method, he's very much like Kyle Rittenhouse. So it's like, oh, Kyle Rittenhouse mashed with Ben Shapiro, mashed with maybe a bit of Dylan Roof in there, and Brenton Tarrant, and of course, Anders Breivik. And all of these are connected. They're all part of the same. And there's also a new pattern they've introduced here, and it has to do with retaliation. So the King Soopers shooting last year in Boulder, Colorado, was a retaliation for Christchurch. Well, this shooter is saying that his act is a retaliation for Waukesha, Wisconsin, where that guy ran through the crowd. And that was retaliation for Kenosha. So now here you have, with this shooting in Buffalo, you have an overt terrorist attack from a right-wing inspired racist nationalist who specifically targeted blacks. And he killed, this is according to the news story, he shot 13, 11 died. But he's pretty much is a racially targeted attack. So this is a very, this is definitely what you'd expect for a midterms type of a psyop. But it's playing into everything that's wrong with this country right now. It's basically going to further, I think, underscore the need to censor the internet, because they're saying that this person who's 18 had no contact with actual racism in the world. He wasn't actually worried about being replaced by immigrants. Like, this wasn't a real thing for him, but he was radicalized online. And I did read his manifesto. I read his manifesto. I had the audiobook reader read it to me, and it's just rehashing all these old ideas. And I want to point out too, it's very anti-individual. It's very much against the idea of American individualism. It's definitely redundant though. It's basically some of these mass shooters, like Ted Kaczynski. He ought to sue Brenton Tarrant and some of these other guys for copyright infringement. There's no originality with these guys. But it totally fits into this scapegoat free speech for everything that's wrong with the country. Now, I did watch the video, and I want to say this before we go any further. I watched the video. There's a group of us. I've watched the video frame by frame by frame by frame. So if you didn't watch it, you have no right judging those of us who do. You know, you'll say, how dare you say it's not real? If you didn't have the stomach to watch it, then go ahead and stay out of the kitchen. Because we watched it, and we have a basis for what we're saying. So it's not just a knee-jerk, believe it because it's shocking. And was it shocking? Yeah, barely. I mean, you can tell there's a bit of, I would say, evidence of pre-production, a lot of pixelation. Whenever the footage gets questionable, it just gets pixelated. So Brenton Tarrant and this shooter need to get their money back from GoPro, if you ask me, because every time these cameras move too fast, it gets pixelated. So the shooter, of course, Buffalo mass shooter, this thing has some interesting connections that I'm going to get into that suggest that this whole thing is a major league hoax. But like I was saying, he crossed state lines, he drove 3 hours, he's kind of like, well, I don't know if he crossed state lines, but he drove 3 hours, which is a very Kyle thing to do. He's only 18, very Kyle thing to do again. And then his manifesto and his reason for doing so invokes Patrick Crusius, the guy who shot up the Walmart over immigrants. And all of these names have been brought up. He brought up these names in his manifesto. Now again, they want to make the point that he was radicalized by the internet. Well, he was specifically citing this idea that whites are being replaced by immigrants that are being deliberately imported because they're all going to vote Democrat. So this is the same thing that motivated the shooter in Walmart. And to me, this is so template, and it's so perfectly timed. And it almost seems like this psyop was designed to scapegoat Tucker Carlson. So I'm asking the question, did Tucker Carlson send the shooter? And I'm only being slightly ironic because the truth is, this is the narrative that they have built. That this is a creature from Fox News. And of course, recently, Tucker has had people on, like even Kyle Rittenhouse. And Kyle Rittenhouse is trending today on Twitter. They can't help but bring these up, even though he shot a burglar and a pedo, and he didn't shoot any black people, but they threw him in there. Okay, so let's go and take a look. First of all, let me get his name. His name is bizarre. Last name is Gendron. 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 So we're talking about Peyton Gendron, who had already been on the radar for everything, for threats and everything. This is always the story. They started this, they really emphasized it with Nick Cruz. They said, oh, if only the adults had listened. We all knew he was going to do it. It was pretty obvious. So they're trying to put it out there that government needs to act. It's not enough just to monitor the people with extremist views. You got to act. Minority Report style. Assume that they are going to go cut themselves a mean bowl cut and shoot up a place. So it says a preliminary investigation found he visited sites espousing white supremacist ideologies and race-based conspiracy theories. And he researched Christchurch, New Zealand, and Anders Breivik, who killed those in Norway. So he visited these things. And I can tell you right now, maybe this person was an extremist, but he was not an auto hoaxer. If he had followed this channel, he would have said, well, it's not worth killing for because it's all fake. So if anything, this shows you that fake news can, if you think this is real, well, you haven't investigated the previous events, Christchurch, New Zealand, and Anders Breivik's event. But my point being, there's no way this is real unless he's being radicalized off of these obviously staged events. I mean, these characters are two-dimensional. Now, this is also streamed on Twitch, supposedly. I happen to think the pixelation was all digitally inserted in order to help hide the fakery. I don't think it was a live video. I think it was streamed as though it were live. Now they're targeting Twitch because they're targeting live streaming. They use this to effectively really stimmy live streaming on YouTube. You got to have 1,000 subs. Like, I can't get to 1,000. I could have 10,000 people who want to listen, but I can't get 1,000 subs. No way, they'll cut me down. So that's intentional. They don't want me to have a phone that can go stream anywhere. And here again, Twitch is now the target. They already took out DLive because it was DLive streamers that went out there to the Capitol and won 6. Now, before we get any further, I told you I watched it frame by frame. Well, there's a scene, there's a particular shooting that occurs where he's walking along the aisle, rather it's at the edge of the store, and he's walking along and you see the coin machine, where you put all your coins in and it gives you a receipt for how much money, which worth of coinage you had saved up in your couch cushions. The Morgile machine, the coin sorter. What is it called here? I think it's called coin something. But whatever it is, he passes one of these, and you don't have to watch it because it's fake, I can tell you. But if you want to watch it, go ahead. So he walks by, and then it gets pixelated, and the very next scene, you see somebody in front of him on the left who's falling over. Now the guy who's falling, yeah, Coinstar is the thing. So he passes a Coinstar, and then it just zooms forward after this pixelation, and you see this large man on the left, and he's falling over, and his hat is up in the air, like it's falling. He falls down until his head hits the ground, but his posterior stays up, and his feet are still up in the air. So what it looks like is a digitally inserted AVR prop. Like this character, this person who gets shot isn't actually there. It's an AVR because it doesn't land on the ground properly. It actually remains weirdly levitating above the ground. And I would show you the screen capture right now, but I don't know how sensitive it is. You know, they might just pull the live stream. But you can see it for yourself. And what's more, and we're watching the frame, so it sits there for like, you know, you're looking at how many, we're going frame by frame, and we're like, wait, okay, so he's sitting there, he's not actually landing on the ground. Then it gets pixelated, and you see his hat. Now his hat doesn't reach the ground. It freezes in place, but it's so far back that if it is where it appears to be, it should have shrunk. So the hat is way too big, or it's levitating. I mean, it's just, the graphics are so bad. And then the next frame, the floor is suddenly covered in what look like a bunch of Vax needles. And I'm like, wait, where do those come from? So there's some digitally inserted artifacts. It looks like a NASA production. Unchained Fenrir says, was he on the space station? Yeah, it really looks like it. The graphics are terrible. We have other evidences of squibs, squibby activity. Nothing about it to me honestly suggests that it's real. Lack of a lot of things that you would expect. But anyway, the fact that in the footage you do have this CGI character who doesn't actually hit the ground, that right there discredits the whole thing. And it's very much politically charged. So he points a weapon at a manager who's white. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And he just keeps walking. And I figured, okay, this has got to be scripted. And sure enough, MSM types are covering that aspect of it. So let me go through a few things that I found here that should also raise some eyebrows. So what would you call the QAnon shaman? I mean, what would you call his hat? What kind of helmet is that? What kind of horns are those? Buffalo horns? Because I'm looking at these, it makes me think of Fred Flintstone and that whole Buffalo Club, and I'm thinking, this guy's wearing buffalo horns. So the news media is calling this guy the Buffalo Murderer. So here's where it gets interesting. The shooter used to go by, now he goes by Jimbo Boy or Jimbabo I, like the 3%ers. Jimbo is his new Twitter name, but he changed it. He says, both handles no longer exist, but many replies just replace either one. So he shows that his Twitter name changed to Jimbo Boy. Originally it was QAnon 1062021. In other words, January 6, 2021. So here's an actual tweet from the Buffalo Murderer. Q sent me 10/19/2021. So a couple of things about that. On October the 19th, 2021, Q sent me. So again, Buffalo Murderer, kind of associating himself with the QAnon shaman. And then of course his handle, QAnon 1062021. I was expecting this. Just a heads up here, they're going to throw in this into the mix. Fat Elvis Jr. says a bunch of people are getting strikes for showing stuff that was on the news even. YouTube is taking the opportunity to get rid of certain channels. Yeah, that's why we did this analysis in Discord. We went through the video frame by frame in Discord because you couldn't do it here. And I'm not going to fall for this easy trap. So anyway, there's some other things about the footage that I found to be very questionable, like the way that the bodies on the ground were left out there for people just walking around to randomly record them. And maybe it's anecdotal, but I've worked around, you know, as decedent transport, I've seen many scenes where there are bodies outdoors or bodies being transported into the van, and you generally wouldn't see bodies that are uncovered for the public. Usually the coroner would have them covered. Or what's more, one of the bodies was laying kind of on its side face down, and these firemen are just standing around, and I'm like, so no one even rolled that person on their back to check for a pulse, which kind of stood out as weird to me as well. David Pryor says we should ask Owen Schroyer if he owns any buffalo horns. Rocco points out 1019 equals 911. Yeah, I thought of that too. Good call there. So let me go through some of my initial notes here. So even before Tucker Carlson was dragged into the conversation, I said the ongoing narrative is going to be that Tucker Carlson inspired this. I don't believe it, but I'm saying this is an invented character and this is the story. Suspect in New York, mass shooting, said in his online manifesto he was motivated by conspiracy theories that white people are being replaced by other races. Now, this isn't new. If you remember back in 2017, Eric Dubay had his YouTube channel taken down for his video that said, I think it was Europe for Europeans. And this is not a new thing. It's being recycled. They love to recycle this type of stuff. So all we're seeing here is basically recycled propaganda that comes out whenever there's a midterm because it's a border issue. Here we go. This is some witness. White boy with army equipment committing mass murder. Eyewitness testimony is merely hearsay. Right-wing media, like you can't assume that because the person is on social media, they aren't MSM plants. Right-wing media personalities such as Tucker Carlson, who always talk about the white replacement theory, are responsible for the shooting that happened in the supermarket. Like this was a predictable response. And of course he gets arrested in front of everybody. They treat him really nice, gingerly. You can see he's got his bowl cut and he grew out just for the occasion. I don't know if they took him to Burger King for a Whopper like they did Dylan Storm Roof. And think about that name, Dylan Storm. Dylan Klebold, Littleton shooters, Nazis. Roof, I don't know, but Storm Roof. I would say Storm, the storm is coming. Again, this is all foreshadowing, looking back at it. Charleston. And this guy has been compared to Dylan Roof of Charleston. Another Twitter person, I hope Tucker Carlson is proud of pushing his BS white replacement theory because there was a mass shooting in Buffalo by a white supremacist who's afraid of being replaced. I hope all the right-wingers pushing this crap are happy with themselves. Now note that within hours of the event, everybody knew everything about the shooter, his motivation, and who made him do it. And he'd already been sent to court and made his plea. Didn't take long. And of course, people are going to point out that he was treated very well. It's also notable that he went out of his way and he searched for a neighborhood that demographically would be majority black so that he could carry this out. So they've really made a point of establishing that this is a right-wing, racist, Nazi terrorist attack. Mission accomplished. And again, I predicted this back in March 4th when the Batman movie came out. March 4th, right-wing terrorists. Also, his manifesto has a a Nazi sun. What is it called? A black sun? It's got the black sun on his manifesto. The significance there? I don't know, but I was pointing out how the latest Flat Earth documentary with Eric Dubay in it, again, Eric Dubay is really big on Europe for Europeans, even though he's gallivanting around Thailand. He was in that one, and it has a black sun on the cover, Hibbler Productions. And I'm like, why are the Flat Earthers associating themselves with a black sun symbol right now? Unless there's some kind of a scheduled takedown. And sure enough, this shooter, now I don't know if he's a Flat Earther yet. We'll find out. Wouldn't surprise me. We know he's not one of us, though, because if he was on our level, if he was on this channel, on this wavelength, he would not be believing in these stories enough to arm up. Frogman says, this man that shot up the tops in Buffalo isn't deranged or insane or mentally ill. This is a right-wing domestic terrorist. This is what happens when you let people like Tucker Carlson talk about whites going extinct. Now, on that note of the white genocide theory, I've heard a few people call in and talk about it. I've heard advocates of it who believe it, but they're also the ones who deny the Holocaust, which is a separate topic because the people who deny that believe everything else, which is very much a contradiction. But my point being is the white nationalists who are afraid that they're being genocided don't believe in genocide generally, and they're afraid that the people who fake the genocide of themselves are going to genocide them. I mean, it's a weird contradictory belief system about we're going to run out of people, which you're not. But moreover, his whole manifesto is total garbage, and it's against the idea of individualism. It's very anti-American. Another Twitterer, Santiago Mayer, things like Buffalo are the inevitable result of a years-long campaign to convince young white men that they are under attack. Kelly D. Tucker Carlson is responsible for what happened in Buffalo today. New York governor said it was an act of terrorism and would be prosecuted as such. On a side note, I noticed the Monopoly Man in almost every single shot. Not sure if that means anything. A lot of play online. And one thing too, they made the point to say he was radicalized online. He didn't know anybody that taught him this. He wasn't part of a club or a clique. It was the online thing. And that's what the Riddler did. The Riddler connected with people online to get them to go out and fight. Going through your comments, let's see who's joined us today. Again, Infinite Plane Sunday. And look, we had a interesting conversation this morning in the Discord server because someone had said that I was being insensitive, that I ought to think about the victims and their families before I comment. And I guess they had a problem with me preemptively saying it's in all likelihood to be fake. And so it got us into a bigger discussion about when is it appropriate to call it fake and do we have a right to even say. And my point was this: we're all looking at the same information. So you can't say it's real unless the evidence supports that. Just because you feel like it's real isn't enough. The evidence has to be there. And so we have different standards of evidence, but we have to all base our assumption or our assessments off the same things. But my point being is, on day one, we may not have enough information to know why it's fake, but we certainly don't have enough to know it's real. There's a certain bar that has to be met here, and I'm not satisfied with what they've shown us yet. But if something does show up that convinces me, sure. But I can't make up my mind until I've done a thorough assessment of the entire thing. So a knee-jerk, automatically believing it, to me, is kind of dismissive of evidence that has yet to be exposed. Now, I can automatically with confidence say it's likely fake, it's definitely fakeable, just based on the context of it and how it fits so well within the political climate today. It's too well scripted and connected to other fake events. It's very suspect, and it requires a thorough analysis, which is what we were working on today, doing the frame by frame, and we're still doing it. But my point being is this: if we're all basing our assessment off of what the media presents, at ground zero, we're all somewhat in the same position. We don't have enough information to conclude. To automatically believe is very fallacious. So our sources include not just the media, but also other alternative news sources. And then, of course, whatever we're able to discern based on our analysis of everything that comes out. But it does fit certain patterns. Like within an hour of the event, you've got press conferences, you've got the governor. And I find it really weird that they're so willing to have people lurking around out front while the bodies are still warm and setting up press conferences when, how do you know for certain that there's not a second shooter or a third? They always seem to know that it's over. I call it Scooby-Doo justice when within 30 minutes, you know who did it and why, and the person's already in court and they're already on their way to jail. It's just so convenient, so fast. And we know his intentions and motivations, and we can already politicize it. So, in fact, they're already going to work on, obviously, censorship. They're going to work on how do we keep these 18-year-olds from encountering Tucker Carlson's and right-wing media. Rocco says, you're so insensitive, Tim. Well, look, this is true. And we used to have this issue all the time. It's like, well, how do you criticize an event that touches on so many buttons? And so we have to not be sensitive, but we have to be aware that, yeah, people do automatically believe these things. But you don't lose the moral high ground by asking if it's fake. Because what we're suggesting here is that this is all agitprop. So if there are any victims, it's not the supposed targets of this fake shooter. The victims would be the people who are manipulated emotionally by mass media psywar. And it's right on time. I mean, it's May. I'm expecting they're going to start riling up the mobs and marching them out there because they're trying to get the vote out. That's right, we have the eclipse coming up in a couple of hours. The eclipse will be here, I think, in a couple of hours here in the USA. So happy Blood Moon Sunday. Was it Super Flower Blood Moon Sunday? Sounds like a strain of weed, honestly. Yeah, I watched the video. I didn't see it live, but I watched the video. I did a frame by frame, and there's so many things wrong with it. But the main thing is this. I get the impression that we're looking at a combination of, well, it's pre-produced for one. So they probably do the run. They're using simunition. They're using squibs. They're using actors, crisis actors. But then they also digitally inserted a character in one of the shots, pretty obvious, where he falls to the ground, but he doesn't actually land on the ground. His head touches the ground, his left foot is touching the ground, just his toes, but his other leg is still up in the air. Like, it actually freezes, and then it pixelates. So they're using pixelation to make it look like, oh, it's because it's live streamed, it's distorted. No, they're hiding the seams. It's just terrible work. But basically, we have to address these things right away. We really do. I don't think there's any reason to say, well, let's just give it a few weeks and see. Because you're not going to have the media ever expose its own lies. They gave us Jussie Smollett just to give us the impression that, oh yeah, if somebody tried to fake them out, they would reveal it. No, that was a red herring. Faking is the rule, not the exception. But when it comes to this methodology here, all we're doing is this. We're saying if something is extraordinary or conveniently timed like an obvious PR stunt, it's fair game to ask if it's real, specifically because it's coming from a known pathological liar. And when someone says, well, should we wait on this one because of the victims? I'm saying, well, no, because this is the same media that's lied to us 1,000 times before. It would be like this, because I remember I was dealing with there's a flat earther, Nathan Oakley, who said something about you can't just call everything a hoax. And I'm saying, well, you call every NASA launch a hoax. Can you preemptively say that Elon Musk is faking the Mars missions? Well, if you know the moon landing's fake, then everything else that follows it should be fake, right? You don't have to ask yourself, well, is this one going to be real? Maybe they're actually going to really do Mars. No, once you see how it works, you recognize the whole thing is just a psychological operation in progress. And I'm saying it's the same thing with the psyops on the ground. It's not a, maybe the next shooting will be real. Maybe the next one's real. No, they're pretty much all part of the same psy-war. Are there real events? Are there real shootings? Well, yeah, people do die. I mean, I would know this, but my thing is, show me. You know, if you think there's one that's real, if you can find the exception to the rule, please find it. The one thing you're going to find here, though, is that all outside of Infinite Plane Radio, pretty much everyone out there is going to say it's a false flag. Oh, he was groomed. The FBI made him do it. This is all. They're not going to say nobody died. If they're not saying nobody died, then they're not exposing the psy-war, which is manipulating both sides. So, like, for example, I will see right-wingers calling it a double standard. That we're not getting mad about black shooters, but only the white. Like, they're making this into a race thing when it's about a real or fake thing. Jordan says, not every mall Santa is fake, Tim. Exactly. That's the reasoning there. So the reason why we call everything fake isn't that we're thinking that, well, they're really sneaky and sometimes they trick the news. It's because we know what the news is doing and what it's a part of. And this is you know how we had 19 years of Islamic terror? Well, we have 19 years now of domestic violent extremist terror to expect. That's all this is. Timothy McVeigh was your OBL for this cause. Now, people will be put off from the video and they won't watch it because they've been told that it's very graphic. And so that's like the Wizard of Oz. Very scary, lots of noise and fireworks. So if they can scare you into not looking, then they can basically prevent your critical thinking from taking it apart. They can use your emotions against you. So you don't have to look at the stuff. You don't have to see the shocking footage, but then your imagination will kind of fill in. And I think the bias there is, well, it's so atrocious, I don't want to see it. It's probably real. I mean, I don't necessarily like looking at gory things, but look, this is not realistic enough to be shocking to me. Now check this out. Host dismisses Anti-Defamation League after the organization urges the network to drop him. So the ADL was trying to get Fox to drop Tucker Carlson. And this was last year. So I think that this whole event was probably written up in draft. I think this is all a scripted event, and it's probably by the ADL because Tucker's the target. Listen to this. After ADL renewed its call for Tucker to be fired for voicing the great replacement theory, the primetime host had a pithy response, quote, "Fuck them." Carlson was speaking to Megyn Kelly on Sirius XM. He made the comment on his show Wednesday, which averages more than 3 million viewers a night, claiming that Biden is trying to change the racial mix of the country. Quote, "In political terms, the policy is the great replacement, the replacement of legacy Americans with more obedient people from faraway countries." So he's defending this. The ADL is trying to shut him down. He says, F them. And this is the perfect retaliation, if you ask me. I mean, this is such a perfectly designed psyop, and it merges everything from Christ Church to Dylan Roof to Anders Breivik, and pretty much it points the finger of blame right at Tucker Carlson. You can't really escape that. And in fact, I've even seen Joe Rogan dragged into this thing. Joe Rogan, who last year had a compilation going around of the 24 times that he used the N-word. They pulled 42 videos of his, and then 73 more. It's like, wait a minute here. What is going on? Is Joe Rogan taking a fall? That's what I was saying last year. I was like, he's taking a fall, or they're using him to help bring down podcasting, free speech. Just another attack on free speech. And sure enough, the shooter had the N-word written on his rifle. And if you look through his manifesto, which I don't recommend, I mean, I listened to it on an audiobook reader, but it has all these memes that are just offensive, trolly stereotypes, racial stereotypes. Owen Benjamin wears the Grabbler mask. It's this caricature of a Jewish person, and then he rubs his hands together. Okay, well, this guy's manifesto is full of that kind of stuff. So maybe you're saying it's just free speech, and I'm going to say, yeah, for sure, free speech. However, when you look at very popular channels spreading those memes, and then those memes are in the manifesto of a guy who shoots up a place, it's like, what's going on here? Is it that the grassroots is being poisoned to be taken down? Or are they actually authentically challenging the system with these memes? Like sometimes it seems to me like there's a lot of, I would say deliberately planted bad ideas just to smear everybody. I mean, QAnon is a huge smear. But this guy's manifesto is definitely designed to target Fox. And also the Black Sun Nazi thing. It's really not a good time to be wearing a black sun design on your shirt or whatever, but all right, going through your comments. Once Upon a said copy and paste job. Yeah, I'm saying that Anders Breivik and the Unabomber, these two guys, I don't know, one of them needs to sue Brenton Tarrant and this new guy here. Anyway, his name is Gendron. And again, they managed to bring him in without hurting him in any way. They didn't have to put him on the ground. They didn't have to kneel on his neck. And that's a point that's going to be brought up again and again. And they probably took him for a whopper. People marching to the scene of the shooting. Again, awfully brave to march to the place where someone just massacred a bunch of people. How do you know that there's not more shooters to follow? It's almost like they know the script. Now they're carrying roses. The place was called Tops, I don't quite know the symbolism of it, if anything, yet. I'm just paying attention to everything, but the red roses stand out. If you have anything to add, feel free to call in 833-311-1984. It has all the hallmarks of a psyop. I have no reason to believe it's real. That's my opinion. The shooter looks like a combination, like I said. He's sort of like a Kyle Rittenhouse. He crosses state lines to fight a war that he's been radicalized for by people on the internet. But he also looks like Ben Shapiro in some pictures, which I think is also intentional. And his age is going to be made into an issue. And he has the standard bowl cut shooter look. The roses stand out as very interesting and significant. He's wearing a mask in court. By the way, was he wearing a mask when he was doing the shooting? I was watching someone, I was driving today or yesterday, and I see some mask cuck driving in a convertible. And the roof was down. I'm like, wait, it's like 80 degrees out, it's very sunny, the wind's in your hair, you got your convertible roof down, but you're wearing a mask. Like, if you need the mask because you're afraid of the outside air, close your roof. It just seemed like such a weird, he's feeling free. Maybe the mask enhances that, so he feels free and he feels safe. But whatever it is, he's going to have a circular tan line right on his face. David Pryor, yeah, well, his haircut here isn't quite a bowl. I was looking at the arrest shot. I'm just saying, when I say bowl, I was more like this scruffy combed over his head. So if you look here at the arrest photo, it's very reminiscent of Dylan Roof. And again, I don't know the significance here of the Monopoly Man. This is going to trip up the Mandoozled because he doesn't have a monocle. But play online, again, could be a reference to the fact that he was playing on, it says play online and win. Well, he was playing online and look what he got. Seems kind of like a purposeful meme placement. Okay, let's see. Jordan says, JL26 says spot backwards. Spot is a mark. I was also noticing too a lot of stop signs prominently figuring in some of the photography. So tops and stop. I think there may be some kind of slogans coming out of this having to do with stop online hate or stop memes, stop meme terrorists. Didn't take very long though for all sorts of politicians to come out and make these statements. And so they're also bringing up the question, is he mentally ill? And they're saying it's a double standard, that when white shooters go off, they're called mentally ill, which gives them sort of a get out of jail free card. Portions of the Twitch video circulating online show the gunman firing volley after volley in less than a minute as he raced to the parking lot, pausing to unload. Now look at this. They really made a point, and this is so carefully inserted into it that this is how I don't believe it's real. I don't believe it's real because this type of stuff wouldn't happen. He says at one point he trains his weapon on a white person cowering behind a checkout counter but says sorry and doesn't shoot. So, you know, it's like such an easy script here to discern. Joseph Bender says, I just joined, but it's funny how he had the black sun symbol on him. Yeah, play the black sun symbol, and then of course this ties into Ukraine. This is a smear job on the right wing. So when I ask here, did Tucker Carlson send the shooter? That's the story. Do I believe it? Obviously not. Again, I want to point out that his Twitter handle was QAnon sent me 106-2021. They're calling him the Buffalo murderer. And the QAnon shaman said, Q sent me. And he has the buffalo horns. So these are associations that just kind of stand out. Let me go through my notes here. Matt Gaetz, in a tweet from last year, said, Tucker Carlson is correct, in all caps, about replacement theory as he explains what is happening to America. So again, looks like they've all been set up for this. Matt Pizzagates, human trafficker. who doesn't know how to put his Venmo purchases on private. He's like, I'm going to order a 17-year-old piece of pizza from my friend who's been convicted of 33 counts of human trafficking. And then I'm going to lead the fight against the deep state and child trafficking. By the way, Matt Pizzagates grew up in the Truman House, where the Truman Show was filmed. He actually grew up there. And this is unbelievable to me. Look at any photo of Matt Gaetz standing next to anybody, even Don Jr., and he towers above everybody. Matt Gaetz is 7'5" in photos. He makes sure of it. I think that he does something. Look, every single photo of him, and I'm pretty sure he tells his photographers. In fact, I had this theory that he hires a really short photographer to make him look tall. So here he is, towering over someone who's this other guy, 6 foot something, and he's 5'7". But in photos, he's 7'5", head and shoulders above everybody. That's a short photographer. Again, find me a picture where Matt Gaetz is actually shorter than somebody. And I looked into it. He's definitely supposed to be shorter than Don Jr., but if you look at the pictures where they're together, he's taller. And they're doing it in Photoshop. Anyway, that's Matt Pizzagates, who believes that Tucker Carlson is correct. Now again, just to reiterate, the Batman movie predicted that the right-wing terrorists would March 4th. And the movie was released on March 4th, and as I had predicted based on predictive programming as a predictive model, it has come true. The right-wing terrorists are marching forth. And again, the New York governor is going to try him as a terrorist. So we've entered a new phase, in my opinion. Again, here's a picture of him from Heavy. So you know it's a psyop when within 10 minutes you have the breakdown. Here are the 5 things you need to know about the shooter. And someone, I think Moo in Discord pointed out, and in a lot of his pictures, they emphasize one eye being kind of squinty. And that is the case in this picture too. And this is the one where I would contend he looks like Ben Shapiro. And I don't think these are unintentional. I find it very odd and coarse that you have half a dozen firemen lurking around and there's just 2 bodies nonchalantly laying on the ground. I don't see intubation tubes. I don't see any evidence of any kind of bagging or attempts of resuscitation. The other one's face down. They didn't bother to roll her over and check her pulse. They don't even bother to put sheets over the bodies while they're being live streamed by bystanders. Bystanders generally would not be allowed to film this stuff based on my limited experience, but having worked in decedent transport, this wasn't a thing. Leaving bodies exposed to the sun is not a vibe. It also potentially speeds the decomposition process. Like you want to get them to the morgue freezer, to the examination table. Leaving them out like this is just not an ordinary thing. Again, here's the Kyle Rittenhouse aspect of traveling. Tariq Nasheed. This confirmed white supremacist specifically went to a low-income black neighborhood in Buffalo to carry out a mass shooting. These types of white supremacists are allowed to sit online and plot these attacks, and nothing is done to thwart them. So this is the point too. It's happening online. Fascinating how predictable this stuff is. Let me go through your comments and see what you all have found so far. Jenna Lovecraft Reeve says it's called the blood moon because it turns red during the eclipse. Okay, let's see. De-escalate, get rid of Fox and NBC. David Pryor says Gates looks Kennedy-like. Yeah, I thought so too, and I think it's cultivated. He didn't used to. Look at him from a few years ago. He was more porcine, didn't look like he took care of himself. That's a cultivated thing. They definitely try to mold them in that way. Again, a lot of this stuff seemed to be preceded by the Batman movie, and also, like I was talking about at the very beginning, the Joker movie featured the Joker as this instigator of a rebellion, kill the rich, communist, leftist thing. The Joker being played by Joaquin Phoenix, very symbolic of the reset and the revolution, the burn down, build back better thing. Well, here we have the Bat as a Phoenix as well, and it's been used since Dark Knight Rises. And the Bat was a catalyst for the reset, the Bat-borne virus. So here we have a man who isn't necessarily a bat, but his name is Bruce Wayne, or Wynn Bruce, which is a very Batman-y name, and he sets himself on fire. So here's your Batman Phoenix, and this is outside the Supreme Court building. So this happened in April, and this makes me think, this Phoenix, the Batman as a catalyst, or the Bat Phoenix catalyst, like it was for COVID, outside the Supreme Court building, and then you have the recent leak, which obviously isn't a leak. This is suggesting that there's a big rift, and maybe it's going to start with that particular event. And to add to this, yesterday in Phoenix, and think about the names here. Yesterday in Phoenix, Arizona, there was a mix of protest groups. Here is the Arizona Right-Wing Watch. Happening now, a group of masked, armed, anti-choice fascists are currently patrolling the massive pro-choice rally at the Phoenix Capitol. So this is concurrent with the shooting in Buffalo. You have these right-wingers brandishing weapons, bulletproof vests, with their death masks on. And these are the ones who protest against masks. But here they are wearing, well, gaiters with skulls on them. So if you look at this here, this shows you have the division here based on that leak from the Supreme Court. And again, the Batman would symbolize the right wing. And here we have him. Let me play this clip about the Batman Phoenix.
And we have an update on a number of stories tonight. A Colorado man who set himself on fire outside the Supreme Court building Friday has died. Police say 50-year-old Wynn Bruce succumbed to his injuries.
Wynn Bruce
set himself on fire on the plaza of the Supreme Court building around 6:30 Friday night. He was airlifted to a hospital. Fortunately, no one else.
All right. I think it's all just very symbolic, just like the guy who set himself in front of the White House wearing the USA shirt, a real-life Phoenix-like character. And this was in 2019, when, right before the Joker movie came out. All part of the same ritual. So in this case, this is very suggestive of that Supreme Court leak being maybe the catalyst for the next thing. All right, we did do a frame by frame. I will definitely be posting a blog breakdown. It'll be harder to censor it. I'll take screen caps and I'll show you frame by frame how the event was fake. That alone should be the starting point. Because to me, it's not even, we're moving past the actual video and debating it. Like it's auto debunking, but you have to back your claims, and I can show where it's actually fake. In fact, on the screen, this screen cap won't get me banned. So on the screen, you see an individual levitating. If you look at the left leg, the toes are touching the ground. It's kind of an odd position, but he's in the middle of falling. And on the right, you see this black circle, that black hole up there. Call Roger Stone. It might be a satanic portal. No, it's his hat. Anyway, the hat, it starts up higher and it falls. The thing is, his hat is huge compared to his body, because as the hat fell, it didn't land right where his body would be, because this is augmented virtual reality. It fell too far back, but it didn't shrink, so it's this huge black blob. The next frame, he doesn't move or fall any further, but in the very next frame, the floor gets covered in what looks like vax needles. And then the screen gets entirely pixelated and you can't see anything at all, and it moves to the next shot. They use a lot of pixelation. You can find my blog at timosman.blog. I'll put a link in the chat. And I'm going to make this happen now, like this evening. I actually have a number of these screen caps. And basically what I want to offer is an alternative explanation. Because the storyline, to me, automatically debunks it itself. The storyline is utterly self-debunking. Oh, by the way, there's this new QAnon app or site. It's a new Twitter. and it's called, let me see if I can find the name of it. Here we go. It's a new Twitter account, very similar to Twitter. It's almost a deliberate attempt, I would say. It's called Q Patriot, to steal Twitter. It even has a little blue bird as its emblem, but it's got a longer beak. It looks more like perhaps a hummingbird. But anyway, it's indistinguishable from Twitter. It was created by James Kingsley, who's a friend of Jim Watkins. Jim Watkins is the father of Ron Watkins, who's running for Congress in Arizona, who is likely very, very close to Q. My point being, I'm looking at this new site, and they believe in free speech absolutism. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. This is like a Twitter where you can say anything. Although on Twitter, I pretty much can. There's nothing I'm trying to say that I can't really say anyway. I'm not in the business of publishing basically race porn. I mean, what do you call that stuff? Just this obsession with this race and that race, and we're being displaced, and this group genocided that group, but they faked it, but they're going to genocide us. It's all bogus, and it's all based on fear, and it's just mind control. It's very mainstream. Anyway, I go to this QAnon social site, which is totally ripping off of Twitter. The logo is just basically a bigger version of the Twitter bird. But anyway, you're not allowed to talk about space being fake. They actually put that in their terms and conditions. You can talk about anything at all, except for you can't say space is fake. QAnon social network promises free speech absolutism, but you can't say space is fake. Why is that? It's because the whole QAnon mythos is based on saviors from outer space. It says no Nazi stuff, no anti-Semitism, and no space is fake. What is it about not believing in space that is so threatening to people? Zinvella says space is fake, officially confirmed. That's how I take it. I mean, if it's not a thing, if it's not fake, then it should not be a problem. The facts will speak for themselves. It seems strange that there is so much effort being put into discrediting ideas that are supposedly absurd. All right, let's go through the headlines here. And as I said, I'm publishing a blog later on tonight, and I'm going to go through some screen caps just to explain or demonstrate why I think what we're looking at is a psyop, and I'm gonna have to put some detail in here as far as the connections between the other events. And there is another storyline emerging here that I wanted to point out, that you have a retaliation narrative here. So they're saying that this was a retaliation for Waukesha. That's the one where the truck driver ran over a group of people in response to Kyle Rittenhouse's verdict. So you have kind of a retaliation for Rittenhouse, and this shooter says he's retaliating for that. So it's this back and forth. And again, Christchurch happens. White nationalist shoots up mosques. By the way, if you haven't seen that one, if you haven't watched the video, they suppressed it. Super fake. It looks like the same production company. But there were two mosques. And the video from the second mosque has someone walking outside covered in red dots, somebody behind him with a spray bottle. Like, that's how fake it is. Like, they're so obvious about it. But there's also a scene where people are on the ground and then they get up. So after you actually have zombies, I guess. My point being, that event was repeated with the parlor shooting, if you recall. Same template. I mean, you get into it. It's like white nationalist shoots immigrants in two targeted locations and then gets pulled out of his car with a pit maneuver. Same exact event, almost on the anniversary. I mean, these things are so predictable. But then the King Super Shooter says he did this shooting in response to Christchurch. So these shootings like to inspire one another. They reference one another. They all exist in the same fictional universe. Going through your comments, Echo Charlie says race is fake, we're all human, and progeny are fertile. Yeah, we're looking at artificial distinctions, but again, this is a political football that they throw out there, and it's just amazing to see how people will just take sides like this, and they're so ready to say, oh, this person did this because of that person. When, what about presumption of innocence? It's one of the things that I noted when the Parkland shooting happened. It's like no one really cares about the presumption of innocence because the media can tell you the whole story and they can convict somebody right there on the spot. The court of public opinion matters more, apparently, and it's totally compromised because it's spellbound. But there's no presumption of innocence here. Nick Cruz had an alibi. One of his friends came out, another student. She said, oh, when it happened, I was with Nick Cruz. We were walking outside and we heard the gunshots and I laughed and I said to him, hey, Nick, I'm surprised it wasn't you. Melissa says they don't want you saying space is fake because it undermines the space military program that Trump started. They don't want us to discover the real space of the infinite plane. Yeah, exactly. They want to bottleneck human exploration, and they don't want some random person to go too far south and go to, quote, Mars, or go to some, basically find some place where it's just resources and become a trillionaire. They want to bring it from space. They're going to say, oh, we're going to the asteroids, or we're going to the moon, we're going to Mars. They're probably just going to go to these places that we're not allowed to go to. Cheap labor, you'll be cheap Martian labor. This is what's so ingenious about it. You have capitalists who have been fighting against the commies forever. They're being scapegoated for climate change. They're recognizing, oh, they're using environmentalism to advance their communist agenda. But then they go right along with the space program because they see this as an extension of the free market. Oh yeah, this is technology as savior. It comes from the free market, so let's go to space. So you're going to go to space where you give up all your private property. It's a one-way trip, and now you're just cheap Martian labor for the rest of your life. It's the perfect system. You're getting the capitalists to feel guilty about property ownership, to take the blame for destroying the world with their political and economic system. You get them to agree that a better system is the sustainable model that we're developing on Mars. And once you get everyone to accept that Mars is the ideal, well, then you can start making that the standard on Earth. And that is their plan. On Earth as is on Mars. That is the plan. They want to bring their space heaven down to Earth. This utopianism is the agenda. It's not about taking you on some fantastic voyage to some faraway paradise. No, it's actually about locking down the Earth. And it always has been. There are some speeches from 2017 where Jeff Bezos was talking about the need to achieve a civilization of stasis to keep this place going. But if you want freedom and liberty, just go to space. And this is before they had the COVID lockdowns. So I agree, they are indeed trying to stop us from talking about space being fake because it's a huge part of the ongoing agenda. And the hopium that the QAnoners are dosing is based on Space Force coming down to save them. The Guardians. And speaking of, they call them the Guardians, right? The Space Force, they're not soldiers, they're Guardians. There are 6,800 Guardians right now in the Space Force. Now, I did see, I think it was on HBO or something. I think it's called, it was Guardians? Legend of the Guardians. It's an animated thing, and I watched it because I'm doing a lot of artwork with penguins, and so I'm like, well, I'm going to check out this show called Legend of the Guardians to see if it had any interesting connections with Space Force, just the name Guardians. And of course, it's about adrenochrome harvesting bad guys and the Guardians who basically have to go save them. It has this kind of QAnon friendly subtext. So again, it's called Legend of the Guardians. And it involves kidnapped orphans or kidnapped owls being put into this place where they have to stare at the moon and it gets their souls sucked out. Very bizarre stuff. But it involves this idea, kind of like with the Dark Crystal, of this elite group harvesting the souls of the young. But the Guardians save them. Very, very consistent with the QAnon story. Okay, let me see. I'm going to open up phones, 833-311-1984. I got a message from Jake the A-hole. Here's what he said. Take a look at David Weiss's face. Does the possibility exist that he is wearing a mask? So that's where we're at right now. Now we're questioning the existence of David Weiss. Like, who would be wearing that mask? Who would be wearing it? I mean, I'm open to the possibility, but... Okay, let's see. Nate Dizzle187 says, the one thing that threw me off on JFK was his role in the space agenda. Just another player. How could he not know? Good point. Good point. JFK, Apollo 11. Here's a connection for you. If Stanley Kubrick directed Apollo 11, and if Stanley Kubrick directed the assassination of JFK, or at least the movie, which is very likely, then this would all make sense too. Lee Harvey Oswald was working at Riley Coffee Company. The people who worked with him at Riley Coffee Company all moved to go work for NASA, or very close to NASA. He said in a private correspondence that he expected that he was going to go work for NASA. So if Lee Harvey Oswald thought he was going to go work for NASA, if all of his coworkers went to go work for NASA, and he ends up shooting JFK, then it's pretty safe to say he was in the same circle as Stanley Kubrick. That the Kennedy assassination was just another psyop, as was Apollo 11. And it could be the case that this, what we call NASA, the space program, it may be about more than just balls in space. It could be the bigger program, you know, this entire metascript being handled by this film company or film production unit that operates behind the screen of NASA. But there's no doubt that there is as much predictive programming in 2001: A Space Odyssey and in The Shining for 9/11 as there is for COVID-19. There's predictions for everything related to the Kennedys, which is really bizarre. Unless you look at the bigger script here. You know, the bigger picture with QAnon is this second coming drama. But it's worth pointing out that if Kubrick is one of the main metascripters, if he wrote or directed 9/11, the Kennedy assassination, the death of JFK Jr., if he's part of all this stuff, which is highly suggested in all of his films, look at the release date of Eyes Wide Shut. Eyes Wide Shut is clearly based on JFK Jr. There are hints throughout the film. But what this would all suggest is that he's also the scripter behind Q. That the whole QAnon story, since it's wrapped around the Kennedys, has to be part of the same PSYOP department that brought us 9/11 and Apollo 11, and the coming fall of the space station. So, no, I don't trust Space Force as being anything other than part of the play. And you got to see this. This is someone who's believed to be JFK Jr. I believe this is the guy who was at the cyber symposium where they were attempting to basically overturn the election. Again, this is Professor Clement, and they believe he's JFK Jr. in a mask. You know, this Professor Clement also has a curious resemblance to Ingersoll Lockwood, who wrote all those books about the time-traveling Trumps. If you look at Ingersoll Lockwood in his author's photo, or this is an etching, he looks exactly like the guy, Clements. Make of that what you will. Ingersoll Lockwood, he wrote the one about the time-traveling Trump, about Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey. So it is kind of weird, this resemblance, of course, to one of the instrumental characters. You know, this is all a small group of people, but they're all involved in this Kraken thing, this overturning the election. All these key players. And it's all part of this, I think, idea of turning Trump into this savior, time traveler even. Echo Charlie says JFK may have wanted out. Maybe he intuited something. Right. Well, I'm ready for the ISS to go down. I really am. I think that's going to be the next big thing. Just get it over with. It's so obvious, especially now that the Russians have said that they have abandoned ship. It's all about the fall of the Tower of Babel. On multiple levels, this is being played out. We've connected a lot of dots recently, a lot of very interesting dots. And this is far from thorough right now with what we've gone through today with this latest shooting. But again, I'm going to go through and write a nice newsletter just so I can put some screenshots in there, just 3-4 screenshots in a row, frame by frame, and I'll just demonstrate where I'm finding major holes in what's produced here. And I think a lot of it's AVR. And after the Christchurch shooting, I had a talk with Jim Fetzer, and he said that one of the reasons why he was being targeted for criticism by people like Max Egan and others who are really trying to force the idea that this thing was real is that he said they're introducing CGI. So instead of just regular squibs and crisis actors with makeup, they're going to start inserting CGI characters. Digitally inserted, augmented virtual reality, fake people to be killed in these events. And that's what I think we're seeing in this event as well. Not just dummies, not just actors, but actual deep fakes. And it's so easy. They don't exist. You just throw them in there. You only see it for a split second, and most people aren't even looking. Nate Dizzle says, I like your take. If he was perhaps actually taken out, I think Jackie was the assassin. I've seen a case being made for that. And speaking of the Kennedys, they're being brought up in the context of this new Marilyn Monroe documentary that's come out. And then you have, again, Kim Kardashian wearing Marilyn Monroe's dress, which all ties in neatly with this ongoing narrative of Kanye West, the O.J. Simpsonification of Kanye West. He's going OJ, clearly. And so for Kim Kardashian, who's already connected to the O.J. Simpson drama through the Kardashians and the O.J. Simpson drama, it's just part of their background. So for her to take on a role, I would say a parallel role, a commensurate role with Marilyn Monroe, and to wear Marilyn Monroe's dresses, I think something's going down, and I think it's being telegraphed. And then when she dyed her hair to be like Marilyn Monroe, and I believe she damaged it, to me that's all about the crown, losing the crown. So I see it as Kanye West world burning. And again, Pete Davidson is connected to the PSYOPs in the sense that his father died at the age of 33 on 9/11/2001. And we've made some interesting connections as well between the Chris Rock attack by Will Smith and then the Dave Chappelle being attacked. So Dave Chappelle, just look at the names. Chris Rock. You have Christ Rock, the whole association being a church. Dave Chapel, like a church. Dave Chappelle was doing Sunday school with Kanye West. Again, the reference to the Donde Church, the staging area. So these are some connections I'm seeing. And then Pete Davidson, his father having been ritually burned in the Phoenix ritual of 9/11. The name Peter, again, Pete means rock, like Chris Rock. And again, Davidson. So Pete, Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, all comedians. So we're looking at comedians being attacked. One by Will Smith over a comment to his woman. The other one was attacked, I'm not sure why. But this third one, Pete Davidson, he hasn't been attacked yet physically. But in videos, he's been murdered by Kanye West. In a movie called The Home. And here's another connection. Right now, the reason he didn't go to space is he was on a movie set called The Home, where he's covered in blood. So Pete Davidson has already been killed ritually. Even though Kanye West killed him in that music video and had a bed of roses put where his body was buried and then sent a truck with its bed full of roses to Kim Kardashian. So that is another bit of strangeness there. But there's a storyline that's building up here. And then, of course, the Full House. Again, Bob Saget, comedian, dies, the head of Full House. Well, the guy who created Full House owns the Charles Manson house, the house on the Charles Manson property, and he put it up for sale. He just dropped its price, I think down to $71 million if you got it. So it's like, you see the Manson house in the news, dead comedians, slapped comedians. There's a theme here. Burning church, the chapel, Dave Chappelle being attacked, Chris Rock being attacked, and then Peter about to be attacked. So I see again, there's a story here about somebody entering, Kanye West specifically entering into OJ land. And again, he's doing it for, quote, payback. He said, this is not harassment, this is payback. For what? For a couple of jokes Pete Davidson made about Kanye West's mental health. So you throw in the mental health angle, now you have an excuse. And then he's hanging out at the Dawn Day event, Release the Kraken, Pluto Returns, this summoning of the Lord of the Underworld, hanging out with Marilyn Manson. So there's another Charles Manson reference and Marilyn reference. Marilyn being, of course, the other side of that name, connected to Marilyn Monroe, who is, again, someone who died under suspicious circumstances and is connected with the Kennedys. So it's all part of the same drama. It overlaps in so many ways. Rocco says, in the movie Suicide Squad, Pete gets his head blown off in the first 10 minutes. Very good movie. Sounds like a good movie from what I've heard. I'll have to check it out. I also want to check out Moon Knight, which apparently has a lot of interesting Trump predictive programming. Lean Dion says Hawkins from Foo Fighters messaged John Stamos saying, let's hang out before we die. And Stamos was in Full House. That's correct. And there's some interesting connections right there. I would also say that, yeah, John Stamos was in Full House. Fascinating connection there. He did say that. Let's hang out before we die. All these recent deaths have been predicted, usually by Instagram posts. John Stamos in that TV show Full House was also obsessed with Elvis. He worshipped him, called him the king, acted like Elvis. Fat Elvis Jr. says, what's up with Marilyn Manson and Kanye? Seems like an odd couple. They did a song together called Guess Who's Going to Jail Tonight? And there's so many layers to this thing. Marilyn Manson in this capacity is also analogous to, if you look back, when the Manson murders happened, the murderess, Susan Atkins, who the murderess was one of the topless dancers for Anton LaVey from the Church of Satan. So you have Susan Atkins kills Sharon Tate. Well, Sharon Tate was the star of Rosemary's Baby. And again, Rosemary's Baby, we're talking about a movie about a satanic cult and all this stuff, but she's married to Roman Polanski. So Roman Polanski had worked with Anton LaVey from the Church of Satan as an advisor in the film, supposedly. But then, of course, one of LaVey's witches does the Manson killings. So you have the Manson name, you have the Satan connection, Satanism connections, direct connections to the leader of the Church of Satan. And then Marilyn Manson had actually gone and become a priest, an honorary priest or whatever. He met with the church. So one of the leading exponents of that philosophy in many ways. So I'm just suggesting here that you have a lot of parallels. And as I've been saying, 1968 was the template for 2020. 69 and 2021 had many parallels. And this Manson story is one of them. And it's spilled over into 2022. Rocco says, what is up with the media making peeps like Elon and Pete Davey look cool? Or at least on the spectrum, at least. Right. I remember when I was trying to listen to Elon Musk, let me hear what he actually has to say. People in the comments would say, oh, the reason why he sounds like that is that his mind works so fast. He's so smart that he has to slow it down. He has to dumb it down so we can understand him. So it's kind of like how we said with the Tesla Roadster launched into space. Well, it must be real because it looks so fake. So it's like, okay, he must be smart because he sounds so dumb. That's their logic. Thrustazar says, Rosemary's Baby is a movie about a director who sacrifices his firstborn for fame. There's a lot of interesting parallels between Rosemary's Baby and Devil's Advocate worth looking at as well. Phase Polarizer says, in Doctor Strange 2, there's a big one-eyed Kraken-type monster, much like the Starfish in Suicide Squad 2. Now, let me bring this out really quick here. Doctor Strange has a character called the Scarlet Witch. Doctor Strange is based on Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons was doing the Babylon working to summon the Antichrist with someone that they called the Scarlet Woman, Marjorie Cameron. So in thelemic sex magic, the woman, the female, the cis female is called the Scarlet Woman. So you're looking at Jack Parsons and Marjorie Cameron in that movie. Also significant, it's Marjorie Cameron, Jack Parsons, and L. Ron Hubbard. So you have science fiction, you have cinema, because she's a movie starlet, and you have black magic and rocket science. That's where our modern space religion has come from. That's the origin of it all. That's ground zero. All right, we're going to be back later to take calls. I want to write my newsletter and really just diagnose this thing as a hoax. And I also want to put some notes down about our methodology here and why we approach things the way that we do. I had a back and forth with someone in our Discord server this morning who tried to guilt trip me out of calling this thing a hoax because he said I was being insensitive. He said I lacked empathy. But the truth is I have empathy for the brainwashed. I really do. If I didn't have empathy, if I wasn't able to understand how other people see and feel things, I wouldn't know the difference. You know, I'm not apathetic and numb to the fake news and what it actually means. So in our back and forth, it became clear to me that there's a paradigm shift that you really have to go through in order to see where we're coming from. Because we're not doing this to be offensive. And if the truth offends you, that's really on you. And I find it weird that people are going to say, like, I really hope that, it's almost like they're saying this, like, I really hope that all these people died. I can't believe the news would lie to us. It's like, no, technically it's good news that these people aren't really dying. But one thing I don't want to do is create an echo chamber where people don't know why they're calling things fake. Like, I don't call everything fake without due cause and reasons. I don't believe that it's a valid claim to say gorillas are fake or panda bears are fake. We have a higher standard of evidence. But the same standard of evidence that says everything on the news is real, you know, is the one that they apply when they say everything is fake. And I'm like, we're not in the middle ground necessarily, but we're in a third category where we withhold judgment until we have enough information. And right now on this event, you know, we're still in discovery. We're still trying to figure out if we have enough information. And after having gone through the video several times, yes, I have plenty of information to call this hoax a hoax. And I don't feel bad about it. I don't believe there are any victims other than the brainwashees. But if you want to join our Discord server, go to infiniteplanesociety.com. It's $2. You can get in for the month. You can stay, even if you don't pay, I won't kick you out, but $2 is the cover charge. And you'll be the first one to know whether or not something's real or fake, because we will find the videos that they're trying to censor and we will see for ourselves. I don't take anyone's word for it, and we've done our due diligence here. Ashy Dog, good point, says, fake until proven real based on previous constant lying media. Yeah, that's the main thing. That's the main thing there. We're dealing with known pathological liars. It'd be different if this wasn't the case, but they've already shown that they cannot be trusted. By the way, I'm trying to locate a track, if anybody can find it, just a bolt cut away, One Eye Jack on the Shell. Someone has to re-upload it. I tried to find it a few moments ago, got pulled. and I have a review from the track. Just a Bolt Cut Away is utter and total comedic genius, from the lyrics to the video to the vocal delivery to the music. It's chilling and powerful art. It took watching the video for me to appreciate its entirety as a work of genius. It deserves an award. So ironic now that I'm remembering that MTV Awards has an astronaut. The music and visuals of the IPS are worthy creative parallels of your broadcast, and that says a lot. So shout out to One-Eyed Jack and the Shells. We'll have to get that back up. We will be back shortly. This is Auto Hoax, or GTFO, by Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms. By the way, there's a new track by Chief Crow. If you haven't heard it, I believe it's called Dinosaurs in Space. I will see if I can find that here while I'm still sitting here. But like I said, I'm working on a newsletter. We'll be back this evening. Don't miss it.
requires a leap of logic, a leap of faith, and an intervention of the supernatural. Clearly, there's no way you could have mud in vast quantities moving across vast distances. It doesn't make sense. You would have to already be there. The commenter says, I don't understand how a mud flood can kill everyone but leave the buildings intact. because gravity.
Speaking of mud floods, it would seem that crypto has been mud flooded, or the moon has fallen. Thank you for joining. It's 10 p.m., 5/12/2022, joined by Board Troll, Trey the NBD, Ko-Fi Bot, Jenna Lovecraft Reeves, Rocco Calzone, Rich Flat, A Woodward, Polecat78, Wheeze Invelis, Shannon Jones, and Jordan. Thanks for killing the bots. And I pointed this out the other day. It's not just us. It's not merely there is like an infestation. There's a robot invasion. It's all kinds of dating bots, and I'm trying to figure out, where do you go about recruiting these bots, or the people who make them? Like, I wouldn't mind a bunch of out of control IPS bots, penguin bots, running amok across YouTube, just advertising basically. So whoever is programming these dating bots, get a hold of me. Polecat says text alerts are the best. Yeah, it's the best way to get over their attempts to censor us. They don't want us to have a Batman signal. They don't want us to be able to spotlight something that we can all look at and all talk about. They want us atomized, separated, each in our own cell, each in our own cubicle. They don't like the network. And that's why I keep the 24/7 think tank open, the chat room. It's a public think tank. We have the private one, the underground one, in Discord, which you can join for $2 a month. But this live think tank that you're participating in consists of 14 video streams and 2 audio streams. And it's been going consistently now for 196 hours since the last break. And by break, it just means gremlins chew through the wires. I have to go step on them and clean it up and reboot it. But really, it's ongoing. It's infinite. So the big news today is cryptocurrency crashes. BlackRock denies involvement. Very suspicious. A few things stand out about this immediately. We're talking about a cryptocurrency crash, specifically Luna, going from or more than $100 per down to, well, zero. And Luna, of course, crashing, reminiscent of Moonfall. And ever since that movie Moonfall came out on this channel, we've been talking about, what could this mean? Is the moon going to fall? Is NASA going to take? Is there some kind of subtext here? And I think what we came up with, what we were kind of concluding, was that 2021 was all about crypto to the moon. Doge to the moon, the dog coin to the moon. That was the chant, and it was going along with the billionaire space race. Well, this year, it seemed like sky falling was the theme. Don't look up, moonfall. So I think someone in chat had put this together, and they had suggested that, maybe this object, there was a piece of space junk. Originally, it's from SpaceX. Then they said it was from China, but some random piece of space junk hit the back of the moon as Moonfall comes out. So we were thinking, well, maybe this is suggestive of some kind of an incoming market crash. So anyway, cryptocurrency crash today. Terra Luna coin loses 98% of its value overnight. Coinbase's founders' wealth shrinks from 13 billion to 2 billion. Crypto CEOs are losing billions of dollars in wealth amid an implosion of the value of several mainstream cryptocurrency, Bloomberg reports. So this is one of the topics I wanted to cover, and of course the metascripting parallels to this, the stuff, like I said, Moonfall, things suggestive of some kind of collapse. And there's also something else I wanted to point out was we had the the market crash in 2020. They called it a Black Monday, and it was 33 years since the last market crash, that significant of a crash. These Black Monday market crashes come to mind, specifically the last one, because it occurred after the pandemic was declared, which put us into a state of emergency on that Friday the 13th. So Friday the 13th, emergency. Following Monday, Black Monday market crash. So, in a few hours here, it's going to be another Friday the 13th. And again, moonfall, lunar, this whole Luna currency, cryptocurrency, and Monday is actually Moon Day. Sunday is sun, Monday is moon, etc. So I'm thinking maybe something's going to happen. Let me go ahead and delete the Tinder bot. Again, I don't know what's going on here, but YouTube is allowing this to happen. They are allowing these bots to run amok. It's why we issue out wrenches. So if you have a wrench, use it. All right, we have people coming in from the Discord, the DLive video channel. DLive, it's DLive Infinite Plane Radio. Joined by that SOB, Trans Rights, Zin Valis, John Snyder. Hey, and if you want to call in, 833-311-1984. Rich Flat says more than 200 billion erased from the entire crypto market in a day. I heard it was 600, but whatever it is, it's very big, and I'm just suggesting that this is kind of consistent with what we've been looking at with this Moonfall storyline. In fact, there's a post here from Discord from Cubstar. Oh yeah, that's right. One of the articles from New York Post said crypto investors panic amid digital Bitcoin crash, and it's being described as a bloodbath. And of course, we have a full moon coming up. I believe they're calling it is it a blood moon? What is it this time? Bloody wolf moon? Bloody wolf worm? Satanic portal moon? Every time I look, it's some kind of crazy full moon. But there is something to it. The last full moon, I had a pretty, I'd say, strange night. And I don't know if the moon is to blame, but everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. That's right, super flower blood moon. Sounds like a strain of legal weed. I only smoke the legal kind. Rocco says, I follow a channel that does live streams about ASOIAF, and they're also getting a bunch of Tinder bots. Yeah, the Tinder bots are everywhere. And I'm wondering if it's intentional. Like maybe they can flag your channel for spam. That's what I was thinking. Maybe they're trying to figure out how to censor us. And if they can make the case that I'm advertising for external domains like that, maybe that would do it. I don't think John Snyder's accurate. He says it's the golden shower moon. What would that mean? All right, let's continue. On the screen, you're looking at Bill Fame. Again, I'm not into body shaming. Joe Rogan even went here, and that's not my point, but I'm just trying to say, what is this exactly? What are we looking at? This is something that was very apparent during 2020 when our leading health experts were the epitome of unhealth, the ministers of unhealth, and their names were just weirdly ironic, like Maggie the Block, like Jabba the Hutt. You can imagine, it's the same thing. Block. She was literally, again, she was 5 Bill Gateses wide. And the other ones looked like they were already dead. Anyway, the ministers of unhealth, and this is Bill Gates, basically here to purify the human race, save us, this mad philanthropist telling us not to eat real meat. And by the way, my take on the fake meat agenda is that it has nothing to do with vegetarianism, or it has nothing to do with saving the animals. I think the fake meat push is part of the push of all of us into the metaverse, getting us away from the meatverse, replacing and supplanting our reality and our lived experiences with what we can get through the screen. And eventually, people are going to be so merged with the meta, they won't want to go out into the meatverse, and they'll be happy to have their soy fake meat served to them through a feeding tube or something. I think that's the ideal. We're going into our matrix pods very soon. Jordan says she looks like a block of cheese. Are you talking about Bill Gates? Because, yeah, how else to describe it? Yeah, Bill Fame. That's just pure Bill Blubber. Tomanoid says Bill Lubber. Well, let's move on here. Somebody just said caption this, and that was my input. Let's move on. All right, Baked Alaska, far right streamer who stormed the Capitol, changed his plea. I see these actors. This is one of the guys who was live streaming. He went into Nancy Pelosi's office and he talked on her phone and live streamed it. My take on all of these characters is that they were all feds. And one of the reasons why I don't care about his plight whatsoever is I'm pretty sure he's an insider. He's a white nationalist troll known as Baked Alaska. But anyway, he went in there saying he had COVID. So if you are pushing the COVID psyop, whether you're pro-vaxxer or anti-vaxxer, if you're pushing the thing itself, what you're doing is very questionable. But anyway, this is also one of the reasons why we're no longer monetizable on DLive. Because he was on DLive, he's known as a DLive streamer. Well, I was following all those live streams that day. I actually thought that the QAnon shaman, I was going to say Schroyer, I was saying that the QAnon shaman that day, somebody sent me an email, it was Tim Osman with an S. He was trolling me, obviously, but he said, hey, look, Unirock is sitting in Pelosi's seat. And so I see the QAnon shaman, and I thought it was Unirock, who frequently wears weird things on his head like bandanas. So I just thought maybe he didn't shave, and he's kind of, alt-right. Anyway, apparently these people are all going to jail. Don't care. I don't think they're actually going to jail. They're going to Crisis Actor Island. There's all kinds of fake jails where the people who are committing fake crimes for the fake world stage end up going. Like, where did OJ actually go? Because he clearly didn't kill Megyn Kelly. And, all these various rappers, there's got to be some kind of fake jail where they can take in their phones and... Alright, let me go ahead. I apologize for the obnoxious ringer. I'm having a hard time getting to that particular browser window. Alright, sorry for the dead air there. I had to cut through about 7 or 8 layers of windows. Damn, I made it though. Infinite Plane Radio, thank you for calling.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. It took me a minute to get through there. I had too many browser windows open. Anyway, we've been talking about the crypto crash today. Any thoughts on that?
Seems like maybe about time, right?
Yeah, I was saying so.
Have they had
Moonfall? I mean, it was.
They've never really had a big crash.
No, this one's probably historic. I mean, the news is getting out there now. It's kind of a relatively new story, but I don't think we've really seen the extent of the damage yet. And it's also, by the way, it's the super flower blood moon lunar eclipse. So make sure you wear a raincoat.
That's a tongue twister.
I know, I want to wear PPE. Anytime they talk about, it sounds like it's going to drip something on us. Like, what the hell does that even mean? Super flower blood moon. Anyway.
Hey, I have a new Mandela effect for you. Well, it's kind of new. I came up with it.
Sure, definitely.
Well, okay. Do you remember what Rodney King said?
Can't we all just get along? But I don't know if I'm remembering Rodney King or an SNL mockery of it. But yeah, can't we all just get along? Which one was it?
That's what I thought it was too. But I couldn't remember if he said can't or can, but he says, can we all get along?
Now, I'm glad you're bringing this up, though. This is okay, here we go. Rodney King, Can We All Get Along, MP4. I'm going to play the clip. I'm going to play the clip right now.
Ah, cool.
Now, do you know how many times they hit Rodney King with the baton?
I do not.
33.
I'm gonna guess. Oh, I was gonna say 23, but 33.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, how long do you think they hit him for? I'll give you a hint.
Uh,
It's a very 9/11-y number.
77 seconds.
1 minute, 19 seconds.
Oh, 79 seconds.
Yep.
I was close.
Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. Rodney King, let's go ahead and play the clip. It's 17 seconds. I'm going to play it for the people listening.
I just want to say, you know, can we all get along? Can we get along?
Can we all get along? Can we get along?
Yeah,
Can we
please.
stop making it?
Okay, so he actually says it in a few different ways. I'm probably misremembering it from In Living Color.
Oh, where he said just. Because I always thought he said, "Can we all just get along?"
Yeah, I think what we're doing is we're probably remembering from one of the spoofs. Because what he said there wasn't that clear and he kind of muttered it a couple of times. But, I mean, I think it was a psyop. I really do. And I even think that
Oh yeah.
when the truck driver got hit in the head at the brick, that story seems fake. And that could be a sponge. It could be a prop. I mean, I think a lot of these things are definitely faked. But in this case, I think it's also worth noting that on the 30th anniversary of his beating, they passed the George Floyd Act. And these events are all connected by the numerology and symbolism, as you've probably noticed. Anyway, what's your general take on the Mandela effect? Do you think that I'm too skeptical? Do you think that it's case closed, or are you still open to it?
Well, I think you approach it in about the most logical way possible. I don't think you've got your mind made up exactly, do you? You're not 100%.
Well, for me, the thing is,
Are you?
there is a thing. There are synchronicities, precognitions, telepathy. There are things that I think are highly suggestive that no, the televised version of reality doesn't quite comport with lived experience. But my take on the Mandela effect in particular is that it may not be the correct explanation, but I'm not ruling out the supernatural per se.
Right, right. Yeah, some of them are mind blowing, but I did see a video a while back about how Jim Carrey ties into a lot of the big ones, like the Monopoly monocle guy, and they like me, they really like me, and even the side view mirror objects may appear closer, and along his movies from The Mask and Ace Ventura, like somehow he has a little connection to 8 or 9 of them, I think.
Yeah, see, that's fascinating in itself. That you have Tom Hanks, Jim Carrey, in particular, who just really stand out as overly being represented among these various Mandela effects. I had a caller last week who suggested that maybe this is some kind of intentional mass gaslighting operation. I was open to that for a minute when the movie came out for the Mandela effect. It was being advertised on the Drudge Report, and coincidentally, on that day, there was some big event at Chick-fil-A, and they put on the incorrect Chick-fil-A logo. They put on the quote Mandela affected one. And like, this is the most popular news aggregator on the web. How are they going to get that wrong? And not only that, but they had an advertisement for the Mr. Rogers movie starring Tom Hanks. So there's a couple more effects tied in there.
Yeah, and then Jim Carrey came out on the late night TV with the misdirection. He's like, you don't know what that is, Jimmy, whatever, don't know what that is, and it was like kind of like a truth, like he was telling the truth, but in a way where you would want to mock him for it.
Well, what's interesting is we're dealing every day with, like right now, they're saying that censorship is the leading cause. Oh no, misinformation is the leading cause of death. So we're looking at aggressive and overt attempts to censor our reality. They want to delete like flat Earth as a meme from our collective reality. So I can see how you could have some form of censorship where they have one version of something out there, and then they just sneakily just switch it out. Because if it's not open that they're censoring it, you wouldn't really notice. that the men in black are going around taking the Berenstain Bears out of the bookshelves or whatever, figuratively speaking. I mean, as an operation, it has succeeded if that was the intention. But, I still lean towards the explanation that the Mandela effects are the result of a faulty interpretation of one's own memories. But and we can debate that until I'm going through it on a case-to-case basis these days because, for example, a big one for me, a lot of people will say the Ford logo changed. And in this case, it's because on the F, there's a little curl on the parallel bar. And apparently, Mandela affected say it wasn't there before. Well, I looked into it. Turns out the curl is intentional. It's supposed to be an E, so that the Ford logo has a concealed TE for Thomas Edison, who was BFFs with Henry Ford.
Yeah, I heard you giving that insight the other day, and I thought that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
And that can't be explained away as a mere reality shift, because then you would be talking about an entire shift on this Laverne and Shirley type relationship these two guys had.
Oh, I never knew they were that close.
They had homes adjacent to each other, both in, I believe, Jersey and in California. Like they were very close. Close enough to where they actually put TE into the Ford emblem. It's built into it.
Well, on a quick side note, if I may, Tim, when you said the other day, you said you were talking about the movie Don't Look Up, and you said it in such a way where it reminded me of the press telling us not to look things up. Do you think there's a correlation there? Like you're talking about, don't do any research?
100%. There has to be. I think that's got to be the underlying propaganda message, because the movie's suggesting that if we don't trust the scientists, we're all going to die. So don't look up information that contradicts what we're being told.
Oh,
so don't look up. Yeah, I think that's it. 100%.
Man, that's why I love you, Tim. You get me thinking hard, man. But you're so funny, man. I really enjoy your show, man.
Hey, appreciate it very much, and thank you for calling in. As always, we all appreciate it. But thank you for calling, and have a great night.
Yes. All right, my pleasure. Thanks, Tim. Bye.
And also, thank you, Phase Polarizer. He says, turn up Penguinzilla to the max. I think it's back up. Did I get him up loud enough? Yeah, thanks again to the caller. The Mandela effect topic is really about, to me, it's about epistemology, how we know what we know, and then also how good of a source is your own recollection. And I think it forces us to make a distinction between an authentic recollection and a recollection from a prompt. And then it gets you to consider the influence of the consensus reality on our recollections. All right, so on the screen here, you see Justin Bieber and Ellen DeGeneres. I was watching a video breakdown of these various celebrities sold out to, I think Satan was the premise of the video. But anyway, on this particular video, he performs a song called Yummy for Ellen. Well, the song Yummy has a little bit of a controversy attached to it, because when he released it, he posted a bunch of pictures of babies. And the song's lyrics are a little more adult oriented, and so it sent a lot of people on the QAnon side into that area of interpretation, like, okay, he's a baby, he's a pedovore. That's kind of where it was going. Well, here he is on Ellen DeGeneres, and he plays that song. And if you look at the set behind Ellen, you see blue and white stripes and palm trees, which is pretty much Epstein Island's design. It looks like Epstein Island right outside of the weird temple. And of course, that particular song ties into it. Again, it's Ellen DeGeneres. I mean, this is to be expected. I think she's on the list. She wears a shirt with frazzle drip on it. Anyway, nothing out of the ordinary here. Just thought I'd point this out. If you want to follow any of the links that I cover, go to minds.com/infinite plane society, where I treat this as kind of like Discord. I just S-post into oblivion. Now, is this from an actual music video, a movie? Is this from Netflix, or is this a meme? I can't tell if it's a still shot from Netflix. It's got Zelensky pole dancing, and it looks like about, what, $40 billion in cash that Biden has tossed onto the stage. And Joe Biden's been getting weird lately. He's been talking about how he can smell. What is it he can smell on us now? Or no, he can taste it. He can taste our fear or something. I'll find it. I'm going to look. Okay, it's a meme. Thank you. It's a 737 says it's a meme. Restless Bear says she saw it on CNN. So I'm going to go with the CNN. Yeah, no, Biden was talking about tasting. Here it is. He can taste our pain. Biden says he can feel America's frustration and can taste it. So Joe Biden is tasting your frustration. Let me play this clip. He says, "Look, I know you got to be frustrated. I can taste it."
Look, I know you got to be frustrated. I know. I can taste it.
And when he says, "I know," he changes his tone of voice. And when he says taste, I got to watch this in slow-mo. He does that Joker smile. Ear to ear. Looks like an anaconda. Like there's something reptilian about him. And if you're new to chat, you might notice that sometimes we put names in between semicolons. And that's just to signify we're dealing with a suspected reptoid. Okay, let me go ahead and play this part again in slow motion. I'm going to check out his face.
I know. I can taste it. Look.
All right, there's Joe Biden. Nothing creepy about that. Again, one of the topics today, Terra Luna falls to Earth. This is from FX Empire. Terra Luna falls to Earth. And I created a meme here. So the movie Moonfall, and Moonfall actually goes along with the movie that the last caller brought up, Don't Look Up. These two movies kind of came out at the same time. Moonfall stars John Bradley, who by the way is 33 years of age, and he plays the role of the scientist, kind of like in Don't Look Up, a scientist savior, kind of a Noah character, saying the globe is going, or God's going to flood us, the globe's going to flood us. It's interchangeable. The new paradigm has the globe as the God construct, the thing we must appease or be judged by it. So these movies are about God's judgment. Don't Look Up, Leonardo DiCaprio plays the Noah. Moonfall, it's John Bradley, who again is 33. So I took the cover of Moonfall, which was directed by the guy who brought us Independence Day, a movie that had all kinds of 9/11 predictive programming. So when Moonfall came out, I was looking at this in the context of this has got to be signifying the fall of the Tower of Babel, the big crash we've been talking about that's been signaled in all these movies where, like the space station falls, the dissolution of world unity. So in this case, I'm looking at the movie Moonfall, thinking Moonfall's coming out, there's a piece of space junk that's about to hit the moon. Something's going down. So I've been wondering, what is it going to be? And now you have a crypto called Luna that's crashing. So again, the fact that this movie was directed by Roland Emmerich, the guy who brought us Independence Day, is also very suggestive of it being meaningful and having a purpose to it. So again, Moonfall, I was also correlating with the market crashes that we call the Black Monday, because Sunday is Sun, Monday is Moon, Tuesday Mars, Wednesday Mercury, Thursday Jupiter. It has the tin or something, or a planetary body, and in this case you got the moon associated with silver, I believe, but is associated with Monday. So these Black Monday market crashes, we were already kind of correlating with the Moonfall movie. All right, I'm going through your comments here. Salty Siren says CGI Joker. Yeah, that's how I took it, by the way. Biden's face, it looked like a Joker face. And it did look CGI. So anyway, if Roland Emmerich's films can be used or interpreted as predictive programming, much like Netflix in general is, powers that be